Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.6:03, this is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan with you for a very big 4 hours. Breaking this morning, it's been revealed that Sir Keir Starmer knew about Chancellor Rachel Reeves' pre-budget lies and signed off on the messaging around a non-existent £30 billion black hole. Rachel Reeves is now on resignation watch, but if she goes, will she take Starmer down with her? Meanwhile, Labour's biggest donor turns on the government and says Rachel Reeves' Wednesday budget hits ordinary workers the most. We'll bring you coverage of this growing political crisis which threatens to engulf Starmer's administration. And at 4 minutes past 6 in the morning, my question to you is a simple one. Given that he knew every aspect of the Chancellor's approach, he knew about the OBR predictions, the state of the economy and the pre-budget lies, should the Prime Minister now resign? My priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the television and radio airwaves. What do you think about this? Should Starmer go? 0344 499 1000. Is this the beginning of the end of this egregious, wicked and incompetent administration? Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Sounds wrong, doesn't it? But you can almost be hoping for an economic meltdown, so there's a snap general election. But the question is, does Starmer stay? Let me know your thoughts. You can leave a voice note as well. Big stories, big guests and big opinions. Speaking of opinions, at 8 a.m. it is Dolan's Dispatch and I'll be dealing with Starmer and Reeves in no uncertain terms. Yes, folks, the monologue is back and today's Dolan's Dispatch may get me cancelled. Good! So wonderful to have your company. Happy Sunday, one and all. And I do hope that you're having a good morning. Perhaps you're still sort of slumbering under the covers. Maybe you're at the tail end of a shift. Maybe you're driving a cab, working as a security guard. Whatever you're doing, we salute you. And I'm going to be keeping you company for the next 4 hours. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages today. And we have the Mail on Sunday. Reeves must go for her budget lies, say voters. Rachel Reeves should resign as Chancellor for lying about the state of the nation's finances in the run-up to her tax-raising benefits street budget, voters have declared. A Mail on Sunday poll found a majority of more than 2-1 in favour of her quitting after the fiscal watchdog revealed that it told the Chancellor months ago that there was no hole in the public finances as she had claimed. Sunday Express now, families need wages of $71,000 to beat benefits. Now, this is a truly shocking statistic. Hard-working families with 3 children have to earn £71,000 to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. Jobless families on handouts are also £18,000 better off than neighbours on the national living wage. The verdict comes after Rachel Reeves axed the 2-child benefit cap in her budget. The Observer, Tom Stoppard, playwright. Words, they're really all we have to go on. Seems like the Observer have literally given up news. Fine, you're welcome. The Sun on Sunday. Pain of pregnant Brazier ex. My hell with Jade's son. Freddie Brazier's pregnant ex told last night how she dumped him after he held a 3 a.m. drugs party with girls at her home while she was away. That's boys for you. Let me tell you, when the cat's away, the mice will play. I don't know who any of those people are, by the way, at 6:07 in the morning. Maybe you could help me. Who is Jeff Brazier? 0344 499 1000. Help me out with that, folks. Yikes. The Sunday Mirror now. I'm a Celebrity exclusive. My heart sank when Jess wasn't there. Again, what is this? This is all Greek to me. What is this fresh hell? I'm a Celebrity star Alex Scott has spoken of her concern after pop singer girlfriend Jess Glynn was not there to meet her when she left the jungle. I think you're confusing me with someone that cares. Daily Star BBC gangster show hit by crims. The city is our crew in Marbs filming raid. Hit BBC gang drama This City Is Ours was struck by criminals during filming in a Spanish hotspot in Marbella. A member of the crew had his room ransacked as Series 2 of the Scouse Gangland show was shot on the Costa del Crime. Sunday Telegraph now. PM signed off on black hole lies. Surely that's the damning headline of the morning. Sir Keir Starmer was aware that there was no black hole in the public finances and yet approved Rachel Reeves' lies that exaggerated the fiscal shortfall. Downing Street has confirmed the Prime Minister was happy with a speech by Miss Reeves that critics said misled the public about the need for tax rises in the budget. Oh yes, Rachel, I'm quite happy for you to go and tell your lies and you can pretend that the country's bankrupt so that you can give a load of people that stay at home or don't do any work an extra pay rise. Chance for change in Kyiv, says Ambassador. Ukraine has a chance to embrace political change after a peace deal is signed, the country's ambassador to the UK has said. The ambassador, who was commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces until last year and is tipped as a future president, said the country should rid itself of corruption and implement deep reforms so that it may prosper after the war. Sunday Times now. Judges praise juries amid Labour's plans to overhaul trials. This is a story, isn't it, which amid all of the budget madness has slipped under the radar, and it really shouldn't. We need to be talking about it this morning. And this is about, of course, the efforts by David Lammy to scrap jury trials in all but the most serious cases. And it seems that judges now are pushing back on that one. I would have read you the first couple of paragraphs of that story, but you know how journalists these days, you got to have like 4 pages of poetry before you get to the facts. When Nickel George saw a man riding one, I haven't got time for this. It's 6:10 in the morning. Can you please tell me the news? Well, the headline there: judges do not support Lammy in scrapping jury trials. PM's attempt to rescue budget after Reeves' row. The Prime Minister will intervene in the cost of living crisis tomorrow in an attempt to shore up his Chancellor, who's engulfed in a damaging row about what she told voters about the state of the economy. Number 10 and the Treasury fear that the retail offer in last week's budget, cuts to energy bills and the freezing of rail fares and prescriptions, has failed to cut through to the public. I should say so. I think it has failed to cut through amid a blizzard of lies by our Chancellor. It goes on, the consumer policies have been drowned out by rows over cash for benefits claimants and whether the Chancellor misrepresented the spending watchdog. I'm so sorry. The Sunday Times is a great paper. Did they not get the memo this morning? Where are the Rachel lies? Where is this misinformation in the run-up to the budget? Why is that not front page news? Don't really understand, but there you go. It's not up to me, is it? I'm in charge of this show. It's 4 hours, it's breakfast, and I'll be calling out the Chancellor. I'm asking you a simple question. Should Starmer go along with Reeves? 0344 499 1000. Let's get straight into those texts because it absolutely is my priority to get your views on the radio. Sean in Gloucester. Good morning, Sean. I hope you're well this morning. The deluded double act of Rachel Thieves and Keith Starlin and their rancid government have made me incandescent with fury. We all knew they were useless and liars, but this latest budget fiasco is the straw that broke the camel's back. They are literally milking us dry and bankrupting the country in the vain hope that they can hang on to some sort of power. Absolutely disgusting, disgraceful, deceitful. I would go on, I could go on. We need a general election now to save the country. Paul, good morning, Mark. Starmer is too arrogant and narcissistic to admit mistakes or resign. He will throw Rachel Thieves under the bus to protect himself. Paul, no truer word was said. Kev in Southampton. Good morning, Kev. Is it cold in Southampton today? I'm sure it is. Good morning, Mark. Labour have lied and gaslighted us since day one. Enough is enough. They both must go. And Kate, good morning, Mark. Well, good morning to you, Kate. Kate says, I agree that they both must go, but be careful what you wish for. The only way forward to replace the mendacious pair is a general election. Have a great day. Off to Warrington shortly to referee a swimming gala. Fantastic. Well, I hope that goes well. Kate, you are busy, aren't you, today? Thanks for your text. The calls are coming in thick and fast, but with me in the studio is a colossus of broadcasting and, of course, a legend of British policing as well, former Met police detective Peter Blexley. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mr. Dolan.
Can I ask you, given your background as an officer of the law, do you think that it was more than just politics that we saw from Rachel Reeves in the run-up to the budget? Did we see something that would approximate to a crime in terms of misleading the public and the markets about where we are financially?
Well, of course, it is a crime of fraud to deceive someone into giving you their money. And one could possibly stretch the law a point, perhaps, to say that if Rachel Reeves knew that the black hole simply didn't exist based on what the Office of Budget Responsibility told her, but she chose to lie about that in an act of dishonesty to then increase taxes in some regard. Would that fit? I fear not. I don't think the CPS will be considering prosecuting.
But the authorities don't like it if a product is missold, do they?
No,
and you'd certainly experience censure as a business if you did that.
Yeah, and I've heard the word deceit being bounced about her budget. I think there is an element of dishonesty. And, you know, is it really too much to ask from our politicians, of whatever political persuasion they might be, to just have a really decent, truthful relationship with honesty?
Yeah.
I've always found that the truth is a friend. It's the lies that are an enemy, and yet we have them peddled to us time and time again.
Well, that's right. And you spent your entire career sniffing out crooks, right? Trying to spot the honest people from the dishonest people. And would you suggest, I mean, can you tell me about the culture of this administration? You know, is it sort of pathologically dishonest, or are they just being politicians?
Oh, I can sum this administration up quite simply in 3 words: drunk on power.
Wow.
Labour spent so long in the political wilderness, desperately trying to reinvent themselves to appeal to voters. Finally, they've got into Downing Street, and we have seen this very autocratic government with the things that I particularly despise: digital ID. Let's restrict our freedoms. Let's monitor every single thing we do through such a programme. Then, of course, we have Lammy and the appalling suggestion of the abolition of jury trials, and I could speak at length about that, of course, because I've sat in many, many Crown courts, including the Old Bailey, and I've sometimes watched juries deliver perverse verdicts or incorrect verdicts, but it's still the system that I want. It is still a cornerstone of our democracy, let alone our criminal justice system, and to abolish it in any way, shape or form just goes to show how pernicious, how autocratic this government is, and what a danger they are to our fundamental freedoms.
Well, definitely. I mean, we've got impending bankruptcy, given that we live beyond our means. We've got the dismantling of our justice system, the dismantling of our energy supply through net zero, and willfully politically motivated open borders. It just feels like this administration, this government, is dismantling the fundamentals of the country.
Yes, and who are they appealing to, and why are they doing it?
No one in this country. No one in this country.
No, it would appear so, absolutely. With the ludicrous amount of illegal immigration that we've got coming into the country. And let's really call it out for what it is. It's illegal and it's dangerous.
Yes.
Lives have been lost as a result of this to murder. It is tragic. It's absolutely appalling. Of course, I expect a Labour government, a socialist government, let's remember what it calls itself.
Yeah.
I expect a socialist
Call a
government
spade a spade.
to be financially inept, and we're seeing that. It's blatantly obvious. In fact, Civil Service Insider got word to me this week that it is chaotic within the Treasury, and they compared it, because they were also connected to the running of the economy of the country, when Sunak was in charge, and said actually there is a stark contrast with Sunak at the helm in the Treasury. At least he knew what he was doing because he came from a financial background, and there was some order within the Treasury. Now it's being described to me as chaotic. Once again, that comes as little surprise, because when you look at what is really a shocking lack of talent among this cabinet, I can't help but be drawn to comparing it to Blair's cabinet of 1997. And of course, I detest Blair and so many of the tentacles that he sowed are so deep into our country now that they need stripping out. But when you look at some of the individuals within his cabinet, they were clearly bright people, very intelligent people. Gordon Brown might be very dour and might not be the sort of man you want to go for a drink with, but was undoubtedly bright and talented and intelligent. Same for Jack Straw and David Blunkett and other people within that cabinet. Compare it to this rabble and it's stark.
Well, that's right. Who was, forgive me now, his name evades me, but the Scottish Foreign Secretary, Peter something or other, something Cook, Robin Cook.
Robin Cook, a principled man who resigned over the Iraq invasion.
Yes, and David Blunkett, who now, when he speaks, sounds like a member of Reform UK.
Yes, yeah, and a bright man, an undoubtedly bright man. And Margaret Beckett, another towering intellect.
And yet people of substance and people with integrity.
Yeah, and I'm afraid when we compare it to this rabble, there is very little comparison to be had.
It's 19 minutes past 6. Given that he knew about Rachel Reeves' lie, given he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, should the Prime Minister now resign? This is Talk.
I saw the hotel, and it really is right in the middle of the community. You know what's really heartbreaking, I think, for them is basically the government saying that your safety, your priorities, and your needs come second to international treaties and international obligations.
And leads into the other issues of women's single-sex spaces, full stop. And it's driving me crazy that as a country we're not having the border debate, which is at the crux of all of this.
You can see from Kamala Harris's failed campaign that even if you do have every single person in Hollywood behind you and you're paying them $5 million to do one speech for your campaign, it still won't work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. You've got a lovely team today. I've got Davis directing our television output. So if you want to watch the show, just head over to YouTube, search the word Talk, and up we pop. It's a radio show and it's a TV show as well. I'm delighted to say Tommy is taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. And Big Phil Dave is the engineer today as well as lead producer. He's on double bubble, I can't lie. Front pages of the papers. Judges praise juries amid Labour's plan to overhaul trials is the Sunday Times. And the Sunday Telegraph with a damning story and really the story of the day. The Prime Minister signed off on black hole lies. Well, I'm asking, should he now resign? Ivor is in Hampshire. Good morning, Ivor.
Morning, Mark and Peter.
Lovely to have you on the show. Ivor, can you tell us what you think? Should Starmer go now?
Oh, yeah, the lot should go. Because, I mean, I think it is criminal what they've done. I mean, if I said to someone, here's 5 gallons of petrol, and they pay me for that, and there's only 2 gallons in there, that's fraud, really.
Well, I agree. I think, Ivor, it's a fraud on the public. And I think that, it goes beyond politics. This isn't spin. You can't call it spin, can you, Ivor?
No. This is done deliberately. It's deliberate deceit. You know, it's done on purpose, and it's not on.
And would it be enough for Reeves to go, or do you think Starmer is culpable here?
Well, I think, no, I expect a lot of them knew about it. A lot of them.
The whole cabinet?
Yeah, a lot of them.
I mean,
a lot of them.
Ivor, stay with me. You know, we had, didn't we, in the United States, Peter, the Watergate scandal, which brought down the Nixon administration. This is a corrupt thing to do.
Yes, although, of course, the Labour Party or the Labour government has not, as of yet, been found to have illegally planted bugs in various places, which, of course, was the very nub of the Watergate scandal. That said, to carry out a deception on the British public is a very, very serious thing to do. And we now know that both Starmer and Reeves were aware of the OBR figures. They knew that this black hole simply didn't exist. In fact, there was a small kind of surplus, thank you very much, which of course they just failed to mention, set aside, ploughed ahead, stood at the dispatch box in the House of Commons. And can we argue that the House was misled? Because of course that is an incredibly serious thing. So if MPs start to band together and say the House have been misled, if they pore over each and every word, then that can have huge repercussions. But Reeves and Starmer are joined at the hip, I think, politically. I don't think one can go without the other.
Yes, 2 cheeks of the same backside. I mean, Ivor, I wonder if it's a problem for our democracy if lies and a fraud on the public come without consequence.
Well, it should do. Of course it should.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I would think it's getting pretty close to treason as well. You know, it's damaging the country. You're going against the country completely.
I agree with you, Ivor, and I think that, you know, you're in public office. It's a great responsibility. And the other thing worth pointing out, Ivor, is that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who, as a caller to the show mentioned yesterday, is in charge of the nation's cash register, has also misled the international bond markets.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's pretty. When you go into it, it's very, very serious.
In the real world, Ivor, how do you see this playing out? Obviously, it's quite clear, I think, that Starmer will cling on for now. But what about Reeves? Is she toast?
Well, she should be. I mean, like I said, they all should be. I mean, surely there's some smart aleck lawyer, I would have thought, that could, you know, if he's on our side for a change, that could put them where they should be.
Can you think of a Prime Minister and an administration this provably dishonest in your lifetime, Ivor?
No. I mean, I'm heading towards 80 now, and I've never, in my lifetime, never seen anything like it.
Well, no, because Ivor, and by the way, you don't sound 80, you sound very sprightly indeed, and of course, mentally as sharp as a tack. But even Boris, Ivor, he was a showman, but I don't think this dishonest. No,
he was just a bit silly, you know, some of the things he did. I mean, he wasn't this dangerous or deceitful. He was a totally different character altogether.
Ivor, you're a wise man for those 70-odd years. Please call me again soon. We appreciate your comments this morning, and have an excellent Sunday. Ivor in Hampshire there, who says, yes, Starmer and Reeves should both go and be arrested. He's talking of treason. Well, it is fraud, isn't it, folks? There's no 2 ways about it, OK? You can put lipstick on a pig all you like. We were lied to. Barry's in Norwich. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Mark. Again, how are you?
I'm very well. Happy Sunday. What are your plans for the day, Baz?
I'm just going to relax today because I've done my work yesterday. I work full time. Got to keep these people in hotels, you see. Got to work.
Of course you do. You know, I mean, those dinghies don't pay for themselves, Barry.
No. But this Rachel Reeves and this Prime Minister and the whole Labour silly show that Marley should all go.
I know you can. You're editing your language very politely there, but we all know what you're saying, Barry.
You know, because they won't go because Starmer's too busy trying to fix the world. Yeah. And they don't listen to the British people. And if they did, they'd get the boats stopped. They'd put the Navy in the channel and call a state of emergency. They'd stop slinging money at France. You know, the country would be in a better state than it is. You know, they say they're going to do this and do that, but nothing ever happens. Now, if she does know about this £22 billion black hole, and it does, appear that she done wrong, then she should go and she should be criminally charged. Because, that last caller is right. That is, in any other world, if it was me or you doing that, we'd be arrested for fraud. I don't know if that's right, Peter, is it?
Well, yeah, Peter, but stay with me, Barry. That's the issue that Barry's got, and I think you and I have both got as well, which is that in any other walk of life, lying has consequences.
Exactly. If I went home to my wife later on today and said my current account is empty, so I need some of your cash, I'd be lying to my wife, wouldn't I?
You would.
It could be argued that I'd be committing an act of fraud, albeit she would never say that. You know, she would never want to see me prosecuted. Well, I hope not. But
she wouldn't feel too good about it, would she?
No, absolutely. And of course, I would be spinning a yarn. I would be telling a lie. It'll be very interesting, I think, to see how this story pans out. Tomorrow, the day after, let's see if people are going to pick it up and run with it. I'm sure the media are not going to let it rest. So what is the future for Reeves?
What is indeed, and a point raised by Barry, I'll bring Barry back in a second, but Peter, he struck a really interesting chord there, which was about how it's not just incompetence and lies, but a sense that this government is not on our side, not on the side of the people that elected it.
And I wish Barry today, that day of rest that he's going to have, that he has a wonderful time putting his feet up after doing quite probably 6 days a week, because he mentioned he was doing his work yesterday as well. The people that keep this country going, to then be led by politicians who cannot tell the truth. What an insult to everybody who is decent, honest, obeys the law, pays their taxes, raises great children who will contribute to this society, and then you have highly paid elected politicians that stand up and lie. Is this country really plummeting into an abyss so rapidly because those in power have an inability to tell the truth?
And Barry, I don't know what's worse, the conduct of this government or their horrible policies, because take a listen to this, right? This is the front page of the Sunday Express. Grab it when you can, Davis, for those watching on YouTube. It's a damning headline, right? Critics reveal the true budget burden on working parents with 3 kids, right? Wait for this. Families need wages of £71,000 to beat benefits. Hard-working families with 3 children have to earn 71 grand to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. Jobless families on handouts are also 18 grand better off than neighbours on the national living wage. Barry, your reaction to that?
I'm going to tell you something now, right? When I got my job back in 1998, because my partner at the time fell pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I was like, I've got to get a job.
Yeah.
Grow up, right?
Yeah.
My basic hourly rate on the railway as a track maintenance engineer was $18.50 an hour, all right?
Yeah.
There was no benefit claiming. You didn't need to, because people paid you a decent hourly rate.
Yeah.
Back in 2004, Mr. Blair opened the borders up. And since then, it's been a slow decline on people's wages because they import people to do the job cheaper. Yeah. I was down in London a couple of days ago working on the railway, and about 5 of them who were working on the tracks couldn't even speak a word of English. Now, that's quite scary.
Well, it is quite scary, isn't it? And those people likely living in homes of multiple occupancy. not sharing the culture of the country, not speaking the language. And given, Barry, that they're likely having in-work benefits, likely a drain on the nation's resources.
Well, they are. And I'd just like to say this one last thing. Even though she took my milk off me at school, Thatcher the milk snatcher, I wish she was here, because at least we'd have a leader. We haven't had a leader since Margaret Thatcher. And, them boats would not be coming across the channel if she was here, I can tell you that.
She wouldn't have it. She's a scientist. She wouldn't have net zero, because it makes no sense to destroy our manufacturing.
You can get me started on that rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy days, isn't it? Well, Barry, all I can say to you is, my viewers and listeners, we salute you, because you are a member of Alarm Clock Britain, and you're a man that's made choices in his life to actually get up in the morning, to work hard, to have the discomfort of that alarm clock, and to pay your taxes, and to put in more than you take out. And, you're a hero, and anyone listening to this programme that gets up in the morning and goes to work is a hero in my book. We've got to stay positive, haven't we, Barry? I've been saying to my viewers and listeners, the tunnel is darkest before you get out of it.
I'm a great believer in PMA, positive mental attitude. You've got to be positive, but it's a hard job. I mean, I'm 55 now. I was hoping to retire at 65. Now I can't until I'm 69. I don't know why I bothered paying her a pension for.
Yeah. I know. And when you hear about families need wages of 71 grand just to beat the benefits system, there's going to be a lot of anger out there, isn't there?
Well, people shouldn't be claiming benefits if they're working. That's the problem, you see. After 2004 is where it all went wrong. But back before 2004, people didn't claim benefits when they were working. They didn't need to. When they started importing all this cheap labour, that's what brought the wages down.
You're so right. And then inflationary policies, which are basically making your pay packet non-existent, right?
I go to work now basically for less an hour than I did 27 years ago.
It's damning. It's damning, and it's devastating. Barry, let's keep this conversation going. Will you stay in touch with me?
Yeah, of course I will. Take care of yourself. Have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great weekend, Peter. Take care.
Well, definitely, Barry. Stay positive, big man. Everything you've said is right, and it's so ridiculous what's happening, but we must stay positive. You've got a day off now. You put your feet up, get the kettle on, maybe a cold beer later in the afternoon, because let me tell you, big guy, you have earned it. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:35. Should Starmer go?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk Breakfast. Given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, given that he knew about Rachel Reeves' lies, should Starmer go? This is Sharon in Staffordshire. Good morning, Sharon. She says, Mark, isn't it about time Starmer and Reeves go together? Lie after lie, day in, day out. How many more mistakes do these two clowns have to make to continuing to ruin our country? Tony says, hi, Mark, the King. should dissolve Parliament and hold new elections. The Labour Party manifesto was a thing of fantasy. Well, that's another fraud on the public, isn't it? The Labour Party manifesto. How about this from Brian in Lincoln? What's wrong with all these papers' front pages covering trivia rather than the very serious Reeves lying story? Brian, I agree with you on that one. Robbie says, Mark, you ask who are Labour doing this for? Certainly not this country. Well, all you have to do is watch their ending to any Labour Party conference. They sing, "Keep the red flag flying here." They are communists. They all sing it, every one of them. And why was the Fabian Society set up? To bring a Russian-style utopia to Britain. Robbie, thank you for that. Ben in London, good morning, Mark. Unfortunately, Keir Starmer must resign. But this man has no morals. And as Peter Blexley rightly says, he and his government are drunk on power. Just look at Lambie. He can't hold his drink. He's wanting to remove jury trials. Power mad. Sean in Gloucester, Mark, they can all play word games, but to most normal people, a lie is a lie. Margaret in Yorkshire, good morning, Margaret. How are you? Lovely to have your company this morning at 6:39 in the morning. Margaret says, Mark and Peter, this government seems to want the fame that goes with their position in Parliament. They're not there for the country, they're there for their own ego. It has shown that they have no idea how to run a country. Margaret, I agree. I think that Starmer's focus was to become Prime Minister. There was no plan. John in Liverpool, Mark, Boris was not as dishonest as Labour. The Boris wave, costing us billions a year because of him. Wow, how memories fail. John in Liverpool. John, you're so right about that. I will say, net zero, wokery in our public institutions, COVID overreaction, and the Boris wave are all terrible, terrible policies under the last Tory administration, which is why they are toast. John, you're right to correct me on that. Steve, good morning, Mark. As discussed yesterday, the government are working towards some kind of globalist agenda where the political elite will be looked after. We just aren't invited ourselves. That's right, we are not invited. Hence, they don't inform us of their plans, just implement them and tell us to shut up and sit down. Mark, I'm in my 70s, says an unnamed texter. And this so-called Labour government are the worst I've seen in my lifetime, and I've seen some terrible ones. I wouldn't trust this useless, incompetent Labour government to run a raffle, never mind this great country of ours. We'll get to more of your texts in a moment. It's so busy on the phones and on the text board. What do you make of this idea, Peter, that what you got with the likes of Starmer and Reeves is a kind of global agenda rather than a British one?
It's gaining a lot of traction, and I see a lot of people talking about this on social media. I sometimes rein back from it a little bit because many of those commentators tend to disappear down a bit of a conspiratorial rabbit hole, I would suggest. But certainly the lurch towards authoritarianism, which is deeply, deeply concerning and very dangerous, worries me. I worry for the future of this country, particularly if we have another 3.5 years of this. This is the deep concern of mine. I'm just hoping that if this government limps its way through till May next year, and there are still local council elections, of which they don't cancel all of them, because I'm sure they would like to, then perhaps if there is such an electoral wipeout of the Labour Party, that perhaps the nation will speak so loudly and so clearly that their positions become untenable.
Peter is on a voice note. Take a listen to this regarding Starmer and Reeves.
You know, the law needs to change where you get a government that's got into the position where this is now, with Starmer telling lies, Reeves telling absolutely huge lies. There should be a process that this government is forced, or any government is forced to stand down and call a general election. Can't keep having this where this dishonesty, which is what it is, total dishonesty, is allowed to carry on and on unchecked. Chancellor of the Exchequer lied openly in Parliament. Every time Prime Minister's questions came on, that was the first thing they threw at the Tories. It's an absolute disgrace. The whole front bench is a disgrace. If you look at the way they behave. We don't want this, right, because our country is going down the drain with this mob, so it needs to go right now.
Maggie in London says, good morning, Mark and Peter. I feel we're living the Biden years here in the UK. It seems the left can do and get away with anything with no consequences. Well, we all know what happened there. The next general election can't come quickly enough for me and for most of the country. Stephen Kent, Tony Blair and the weapons of mass destruction lies that allowed the war in Iraq. Labour lie whenever they need a certain result. I will say, and it's the topic of today's Dolan's dispatch, I'm not going to have these people on the left, this Labour government, telling us and my viewers and listeners, Peter, that they're the good people, that you've got the evil, wicked Tories and the ultra-racist, fascist Reform UK, and that Labour are somehow the good people.
I would take no word of advice or lecturing from Labour whatsoever. Their colours have clearly been displayed. Deceitful, dishonest, I'll say it again, drunk on power, not to be trusted, inefficient, inept. I could go on.
How did the radical left manage to appropriate the idea of being a good person and morally superior? How did that happen?
Well, we have to rewind to 1997, if you'll forgive the brief history lesson, when, of course, Blair and political correctness entered the lexicon of British language. Now, there was some, and I say some, good things that whole kind of looking at how we acted and looking at our language kind of achieved. Certain words were consigned to the dustbin forever. Very good. But there was a much more pernicious kind of plan behind it. It was to sow the seeds, the tentacles of self-righteousness, left-leaning self-righteousness throughout our public services and throughout society. And now, as we fast forward to where we are in 2025, they have all been captured. The NHS, the criminal justice system, including, of course, the police. Wherever you look, this far left, quite bonkers ideology, which says you conform with how I dress, what I call myself, the language I choose, or you will be out of a job, on a tribunal, or even imprisoned. That's where we've got to. The tentacles sown by Blair have gone so deep into the very fabric of Britain, and of course the greatest sin of the Tories, who were in power for 14 years, was that they did not strip it out. They did not conserve. The Conservatives did not conserve the UK. And whatever government comes next after this appalling Labour, they are going to need 2 terms to bring this pendulum that has swung so far to the bonkers ideological left, that to bring it even back remotely towards the centre of sensibility and common sense will take 2 terms. It's very deep. We have to free all our public services and society once again.
I completely agree with you. What a wonderful speech that was. And essentially, in one word, it's the establishment, you know, and the Tories are part of that establishment. We need a political and an economic and a cultural revolution in this country. The blob, the infrastructure, the justice system, the police, you mentioned, all our public institutions ridden with political correctness and wokery. It's all got to be stripped out. Will it happen? It will. But the question is, what state will the country be in by the time of the next general election? Vic says, good morning, Mark. On Starmer reads, positions untenable, must go. Country will have no confidence in this parliament. Is it time now, given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, that Starmer steps down? This is Talk Breakfast.
budget has been quite simply about lying her way to enable her to appease her backbenchers. And it says a lot about the state of the Labour Party's leadership as well as that of the Chancellor.
I mean, I don't fancy the chances of her going at all. I think she'll dig her heels in. I think she'll come up with even more lies to cover up the lie. And I reckon by the end of the week, she's still going to be in position. What do you reckon?
Well, who knows? I think it's important that we all keep the pressure up and actually make sure that the general public know what has been going on.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dave says, Mark, I can't believe people are surprised to hear a politician lied. Remember Guy Fawkes was the only man to enter Parliament with honest intentions. Tina in Staffordshire. Good morning, Tina. How are you on this Sunday morning at 6:49? Tina says, Mark, the government are incompetent. The King should dissolve Parliament. Nigel in Brighton. Good morning, Mark. Please check out the BBC News app, who is still trying to gaslight the public into thinking this isn't a story. They're leading on some spurious story about Trump being a colonial threat. This story is being spun to say that Starmer wanted to go further and faster for growth. This is the broadcaster that chased Boris and Liz Truss out of office. Yet when it's Labour, they look away. This is almost certainly why Starmer knew he was safe, signing off on the black hole lie. Thankfully, says Nigel, we still have Talk. Well, Nigel, thank you for that. Thankfully, we have you, because just during the break, Peter Blexley was saying how much he loves being on this platform because he loves hearing your wise comments and your common sense.
It's such a privilege and a joy to sit here hearing the voices, the texts, the messages, the phone calls from an audience who are so polite, though. You know, when I was talking about that pendulum swinging a little while ago, it can be brought back to the centre with politeness, with respect, with decency, with honesty, and this is what you get from the audience. Everyone's polite, they're expressing their views.
Definitely.
They may be forthright, but it's just the very essence of Britishness. Decent, honest, hard-working, salt of the earth Britishness. And to sit in this chair as I do and hear these views and contribute, it is an honour.
Well, listen, I will say it's an honour to have you, Peter, because you've got an army of fans, and rightly so, because they feel you're on your side, they feel you talk sense, you're an authentic man, you shoot from the hip, you can't be cancelled, and those are the voices we now need. Whereas, as you say, quite rightly, Nigel, looking at the BBC, it feels like state-sponsored propaganda. Let's be honest, they all agree with Starmer and Reeves. This is a voice note from Steve regarding the double act of the Prime Minister and the Chancellor.
Good morning, Mark and Peter and the top team at Talk. I'm a lorry driver. I do over like 65, nearly 70 hours a week to put food on the table for my wife and my 3 children. I'm also a Royal Marines veteran, spent 22 years in the Corps from 1985 until 2007. I'm appalled by this government, absolutely flippant appalled. I was brought up by my parents and then by the Royal Marines to have honour, integrity, and to treat people with fairness. And I'm sorry, this government doesn't have any of that in any sort of form whatsoever. They should all go, totally go. They're an absolute shower, and if it was up to me, I'd be getting Peter down there to charge them with whatever he can. Take care, guys. Great show. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you for a brilliant voice note, Steve. Thanks for the kind words. I agree with you on that. John in Blackpool says, good morning, Mark. Reeves and Starmer should face strong punishment for their lies. They need to be shamed. It's a problem for our democracy, Peter, is it not, if lies come without consequence?
Well, first of all, I'm going to thank Steve for his service. 22 years as a Royal Marine. Do you know how difficult it is to get in and then qualify and then serve as a Royal Marine Commando? Goodness me, a breed apart. Thank you, Steve. And he's keeping the wheels of the economy literally turning as he drives his lorry to feed his family. To be dishonest without consequences, well, we don't allow our children to be dishonest without consequences. They faced sanctions. They were punished. We as adults cannot go out and behave dishonestly, although many millions of people are, unfortunately, these days on the streets of Britain, which have been surrendered by our police. But don't get me started on that. There should be consequences. If you lie, if you're dishonest, especially to the nation, then of course there should be some form of consequence. I hope the media run with this story and run and run and run with it. I hope that those in positions of power, if it's proven that Reeves misled the House of Commons, lied to the House of Commons, that could be career-ending. And let's face it, at the very least, it should be.
It most definitely should be. The Sunday Express, for me, maybe have the headline of the day, Peter. Families need wages of 71 grand to beat benefits. A shocking story, this. Hard-working families with three children...
Mark. Morning, Peter.
have to...
Laura in
there you
Wiltshire.
go. I've just been heckled by one of my audience members. We'll get to that voice note in just a second. Just let's have a look at this, right? Hard-working families with three children have to earn 71 grand to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. Jobless families on handouts are also 18 grand better off than neighbours on the national living wage. This doesn't end well, does it, if you're going to make more money staying at home than going to work?
£71,000. A huge sum of money just to keep up with somebody who might have multiple children and they're shelling them out on benefits. Absolutely unbelievable. And let's imagine that this family had one person working who was on a salary of £71,000 if they were fortunate enough. Anything over £50,000 would be taxed at the higher rate. And of course, with Reeves this week in her budget freezing the tax thresholds, what that's going to mean is many more people, as they get a pay rise, will be sucked into paying higher rates of tax. It was a tax rise by any other name. It was just sleight of hand that brought it in. It's astonishing. And of course, while I'm having a rant about the budget, the two-child benefit cap, right, gone. Going to cost us at least £3.5 billion a year, like we've got that to splash about. And what is it going to do? I fear it will encourage the reckless and the feckless and the irresponsible to once again get on their backs, open their legs, and without any concern for the future, shell out more children that they simply can't afford. I'm a bit old-fashioned. Have as many kids as you like, as long as you can afford them.
Open their legs, blimey. Apologies if you're eating your cornflakes this morning, 6:56. But listen, he's shooting from the hip, is Peter Blexley. He won't be cancelled. He can't be cancelled. And I agree with every syllable. What about this regarding the budget on Wednesday? Someone on an average salary, Peter, of £35,000 a year, working, will now be £1,400 worse off. Where are they going to find that money? An extra 120 quid a month on a salary of 35k. And that's before you've got to the tax on everyone, which is inflation, and the council tax and the petrol tax and the tax to drive your car, the tax to watch your telly. There's no end to it.
And I suspect this afternoon my amazing wife will want me to go to the supermarket to do the weekly shop.
Good luck with that.
The cost of food in the supermarket is absolutely astronomical, and the amount that it has risen. Some years ago, if we spent £100, we'd have an overflowing trolley. If we spend £100 now, there'd be enough room for me to get in the trolley with his shopping.
I'd pay to see that.
It's absolutely scandalous. What a huge percentage of somebody on that wage of 35,000 as well. That cut is 1,400. What a huge amount of money.
It's just such an injustice. And when you've got that figure, right, so 1,400 quid worse off after the budget on a salary of 35k, which is a solid salary, but it's nothing to write home about. Someone with 5 kids on benefits, not working, 10 grand better off than them. At which point the public will start to say, why do I bother?
Absolutely, quite rightly so. I think it was Churchill, wasn't it, who said that the social security system, as it was called then, should be kind of a blanket upon which nobody should fall beneath and everybody can rise above. But we've not got that, have we now? It's become so skewed and people seem so determined to increase this enormous benefits bill now, which is what, 110 billion and counting? It's absolutely unsustainable. The borrowing of the debt of the country is another 100 billion or so. We cannot afford to carry on like we are. We should be cutting taxes, encouraging business, and therefore encouraging employment. We need to speak to the financial services sector to stop them outsourcing what would be entry-level jobs to India, for example, the banks, the accountants, and all those kind of firms. We need to encourage people to employ young British people. Let's help them get over their anxiety. Yes, all of that, but give them sufficient entry-level jobs which offer career paths, which can offer security, all those things that I was fortunate enough to have and which seem to have disappeared, so we can have some pride in this country, boot out people who have no right to be here, kick out foreign criminals that shouldn't be clogging up our jails, and make Britain what it used to be once again.
Well, I don't know what they put in Peter's tea this morning, but I want some. Give me a double portion, Peter, you're a legend. Former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley, and a lot of love coming in for you on the message board, including from Stevenage. This is Tracy, who says she can't wait to see you at the Gordon Craig Theatre in Stevenage, and she says that Laurel and Foolhardy likely won't resign. Should Starmer stand down, given everything he knew? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 7:02. You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and breaking this morning, it's been revealed that Sir Keir Starmer knew about the Chancellor Rachel Reeves' pre-budget lies and signed off on the messaging around a non-existent £30 billion black hole. Well, Reeves is now on resignation watch, but if she goes, will she take Sir Keir Starmer down with her? Meanwhile, Labour's biggest donor turns on Rachel Reeves, saying that Wednesday's budget hits ordinary workers the most. We'll bring you coverage of this growing political crisis, which threatens to engulf Starmer's administration. And my question to you this morning is this. Given that he knew every aspect of Rachel's given that he knew everything about the Chancellor's lies, the non-existent black hole, should he resign? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222 or leave me a voice note. My priority is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. In 1 hour's time, in Dolan's Dispatch, I'll be dealing with the egregious double act that are Starmer and Reeves in no uncertain terms. Today's Dolan's Dispatch might get me cancelled. Good. So let me know your thoughts. I will tell you that we've got a full message board and a full switchboard. I'll get to your calls in just a moment should Starmer resign. Let's take a listen to a voice note from Graham.
Graham from Birmingham here. I have never known in all my 80 years a government so corrupt who lie to the electorate. I mean, absolute shock seeing the clowns we've got running our country today.
And Laura, take it away, Laura.
I agree with everything you're saying, and Peter saying that the whole establishment seems to be crazy left-wing. The only person who really cheered me up this weekend was Bishop Kai yesterday. I thought he was inspirational. You really ought to have him on more often, especially on a Sunday. He seemed to have absolutely the right idea. And amazingly, he's from the Church of England. It was a revelation. Anyway, great show.
Thank you, Laura. And you're so right about Bishop Kai, who is a true Christian who upholds not just Christian but British values. Well, the question this morning is a simple one. Given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, given that he knew about this narrative of there not being enough money, we'll need tax rises, given he signed off on all of Rachel Reeves's misleading messaging, should Sir Keir Starmer resign? Let's get the views of Sally Jones, broadcaster, journalist and former BBC star. Good morning, Sally.
Morning, Mark.
The headlines they get worse for this government, don't they?
Shambles.
Well, it really is. I mean, let's have a look at today's Sunday Telegraph. PM signed off on black hole lies. Starmer was told of positive OBR forecast, but was happy with Reeves's claim that tax rises were needed. He's strongly implicated in this scandal, is he not?
He is absolutely yoked to her like a horse and carriage on this. And I think if she goes, he cannot be far behind because he's put his name all over it. I think he's been very much instrumental in it because I believe personally they don't get on particularly well. But obviously it's such an enormous stage and it's such a crisis in the whole government that, you know, he's very much part of this, and I just don't see that he would have any kind of credibility left if she goes. I mean, what gets me is the way that they shilly-shally from one policy to another. They try it out, they run it past the electorate a few days or weeks before the actual budget. The moment they can see that something's very unpopular, it's immediately dropped. For example, the proposed rises in income tax. But of course, those are being brought about anyway by freezing the tax threshold. And also the fact that once the Office of Budget Responsibility had really called their bluff by coming out with the actual forecasts, the actual predictions that they'd given them, rather than trying to deny that they'd given those forecasts, they simply attacked the Office of Budget Responsibility for releasing that detail. You know, it just looks like a government in absolute chaos and, as you say, mired in corruption.
We have to be thankful for the OBR who have gone rogue on this one.
They absolutely have. In the past, they would have kept a discreet silence and, you know, sort of at hand, but they wouldn't have said anything. I think that there's obviously somebody who's at their wits' end at the OBR who's just thought, blow this, I'm going to tell the truth and shame the devil. And of course, given that what they're saying is true, there's not a lot that either Reeves or Starmer can do except try to run around, pick up the pieces. I think they're now trying to say that the amount of money which they're now having to spend on things which they thought they would save, for example, some of the cuts to welfare, which were so unpopular that the welfare benefits had to be reinstated, the restoration, the U-turn on the winter fuel allowance, which they'd hoped to save on, but it provoked such an uproar that they had to bring it back. I think, I mean, if she, for example, had said, this is a Labour budget, I'm a Labour Chancellor, we're doing this simply to rinse the wealthy, which is obviously what they're doing, and not just the wealthy, but ordinary, as they say, working people. I mean, it is shocking that benefits claimants would have to, are getting the equivalent, a family on full benefits, of a working family who would have to be making $71,000 a year to be on an equally good level as the benefits claimants, where several children in the family and the parents are all receiving these benefits. I mean, it is absolutely shocking. This is not a budget for growth or economic stability. It is simply a sop, I think, to the backbenchers who wanted the two-child cap lifted, which they've now had, but of course it's left the government in disarray.
Most definitely. Sally, stay with me. I'm delighted to say that you're joining us for the full half hour. Glenn is in Edinburgh, in Old Reekie. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. I would have thought it's a little nippy out this morning in the great city of Edinburgh.
Well, I've just left Edinburgh. I'm on the A1 and I have had snow on my way down.
There you go. That doesn't surprise me, having spent 4 happy years living up there on the East Coast. Glenn, what do you make of this story?
I'm actually shocked with it, but it doesn't surprise me with the way they've conducted themselves since they came in. And it was just one point that it sticks out with me is with everything they've done since they've been in, with the attack on freedom of speech and that, and the way our country looks to the rest of the world. Now we've got brought over the last 2 days with them lying to the British public, trying to defraud us through saying there's a 20 billion black hole. It makes us look even worse to the rest of the world. I mean, does the rest of the world see our government as a government that can't be trusted now?
I agree. I think we are a global laughingstock. Stay with me, Glenn, because the other issue you've got, Sally Jones, is it wasn't just the public that were misled, but the international bond markets as well.
They went absolutely berserk for a short while. And the problem is that it's Britain's whole standing in the world that's hit by this. Reeves herself has threatened that if she has to resign, then the gilts market will go mad because it will just lose all credibility in Britain itself and its financial stability. So I think she's almost trying to blackmail people into allowing her to stay on. But, I mean, we're almost getting like Italy in the 1980s, where they had, I think, 7 prime ministers in 10 years and an absolute whirlpool of economic chaos, because it's the lack of trust, it's the obvious fibs and the misleading statements and the trying to cover up and the desperately trying to save your skin. And I mean, when you look at how Starmer has shifted his stance from almost sort of Trotskyite in his early days through to a great supporter of Corbyn, and now trying to be, when he was elected, trying to be Mr. Sensible, Mr. Lawyer, Mr. Moral Rectitude, then to find out that really underneath that loyally exterior, nothing has changed. And I think that more and more people are coming to see that too. And it is no good for our standing and our credibility in the world. It's very sad.
Indeed. And Glenn, very helpfully, Sally alerted us to this story, the front page splash of the Express, Glenn. Families need wages of 71 grand to beat benefits, right? Hardworking families with 3 children have to earn £71,000, which, by the way, is a colossal amount of money, to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. And jobless families on handouts are also 18 grand better off than neighbours on the national living wage. This is, Glenn, a recalibration of our economy and our society, which basically punishes work.
Yeah. Well, I've just this year gone out and done my heavy goods to better myself because I was a coach driver, and now I've eventually managed to got into trucking. I've increased my yearly income, but for 70 to be comfortable with 71,000, I'm nowhere near that even doing trucking at 60 hours a week. I'm a long distance from what they say a comfortable person would be living on.
Do you sometimes wonder, Glenn, why you bother?
I do all the time, but I've worked since I've left school, and I couldn't sit in the house. It would drive me crazy. I've always worked, but it really does make you think, why do I bother? Because my taxes are going up, and I would actually be better off just staying at home and doing nothing.
And did you grow up, Glenn, with an attitude towards welfare from your family and from your own life experiences? Have you got a view about the principle of welfare?
I think the child two-cap benefit thing was a great idea, but the fact that they just now got rid of it, when I left school, I went straight into work, and a lot of my classmates were, like what Peter said earlier, was laying on their backs and having large families and just claiming off the state. And I've never agreed with it since the day I left school myself, which was many moons ago. But the whole thing, it needs to be reformed, the whole welfare state, because it's too easy for people to stay at home and not work.
Glenn, I'm deeply privileged to have received your call this morning. Do call me again soon. An important conversation from Glenn in Edinburgh, with a clear message to someone like Glenn, Sally Jones, from this administration, which is, don't bother. Literally it makes more financial sense to stay at home.
It absolutely does. I've seen it with several members of my own family. My daughter, for example, lives in a somewhat mixed area of London. She gets up, she works very often 18-hour days. She's extremely, hardworking. She would no more accept a benefit, or if she didn't have to, than fly to the moon, and most of us wouldn't either. She sees roughly 3/4 of the people in her street literally sitting on the steps during the day, perfectly able-bodied people who could be out, even if they hadn't a job, going and helping a charity, doing something positive.
Scraping chewing gum off the pavement.
Absolutely. And she looks at the amount of tax she pays, and I imagine that there's 5 or 6 people being pretty much subsidised by the level of taxes she pays. They have their kids sort of playing around on the steps, quite young kids who should be in school the next morning till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I see something of the same around me, people who could work, but because it pays them so much to receive benefits, they can wangle a lovely BMW car for a disabled child out of the system. In a way, it's not their fault. They've been led by, tender-hearted social workers to think that that's their due. I'm seeing a problem myself with, for example, the delay in the court system. For any sort of court case to come, there are tremendous delays, particularly post-COVID. So, for example, if you've got a dreadful tenant, it's virtually impossible to get rid of them inside about 10 months. People who are trying to do the right thing, whether it's working hard, providing accommodation for lousy tenants or whatever, are just having it flung back in their faces. You feel, and the sad thing is, I see so many young tradesmen, young people around us who are already emigrating. People who are not your big fat cats, not your Richard Bransons or anything. People who may be good, hard-working electricians who are going to Australia or going to America, because there's much more of a sort of freebooting. You can actually make a good life for yourself without being hamstrung and having half your earnings or more taken off you simply to subsidise the work shy, the shirkers, those who've never been given a work ethic by their families because there's perhaps 3 or 4 generations of worklessness. And of course it's catching people if they haven't got parents like, my father was from a sort of slate quarrying background, came up from nothing and worked very hard to become a bank manager. And I think there's the same, a local bank manager not earning very much, but intensely proud and, gave 1/10 of his income to the church. And, those sort of people that are the bedrock of this country who are being soaked at every stage of this current government's economic policies.
Absolutely. And briefly, if you can, Sally, I took a call 2 days ago on Talk, on Morning Glory, from somebody who works, I can't remember the specific industry, but he pays her, I think it was in a heavy goods vehicle, long hours, and he pays about £600 a month from his pay packet in tax, £600 a month. It's a lot of money. It's a big chunk of his income. And yet 600 quid a month doesn't even touch the sides in relation to the welfare bill, into the cost of servicing government debt to support essentially a socialist model of a country. And it doesn't even touch the sides in relation to £15 billion to accommodate people that shouldn't have entered the country in the first place.
I see it round us. I mean, we live near Warwick, and there's a big Hilton hotel that was a very prosperous, nice hotel right on the motorway. These days, it's full of 300 and something men from Europe, from parts of Africa, from different areas, not all places where they would face persecution. They're men of fighting age, they're men of working age. That's all they have in that hotel. It's adjoining a big school. And the parents and a lot of people around there are worried sick because these people, who many of whom shouldn't be here at all, are simply sitting in what should be a productive hotel, offering hotel accommodation. And the same thing is being replicated all over the country. I mean, you look at our borrowing costs, I believe it's something like 111 billion for this year already. And that's because of the absolute steepling costs of welfare. People should be being weaned off it. They shouldn't be encouraged to get, ever better cars, ever more expensive clothes and help. They really should be encouraged. I think that work should be made rather more attractive than simply sitting there letting the state pick up the slack and welcoming even more people. I mean, I've no problem with people who have a right to be here, but many of these haven't. And it just saddens me so much.
I'm delighted that former BBC star, journalist and broadcaster Sally Jones is with us for another few minutes. And I want to bring you into this conversation. Given the Prime Minister knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, given he knew about the Chancellor's lies, her misinformation to the British people, to the Chamber of the House of Commons, to the international bond markets, should the Prime Minister now resign? This is Talk.
That we've got a big problem with welfare, basically to appease her backbenchers, lying about what happened in Southport as well, giving the Chagos Islands away, attacking our farmers so we basically only have 6 days of food left in the country, pouring cement down the oil wells and saying there can't be any exploratory drilling, so by 2030 the lights may go out. I mean, it's crazy. If I look at that list of all the mad things that this government has done, it sounds like some sort of regime from Haiti.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:23, Sharon in Staffordshire. Good morning, Mark. Everyone keeps saying scrapping the two-child benefits will get children out of poverty. No, it will not. These children will still be suffering because of the reckless family that they're born into. Does this government not see it's a generational thing? These children and their parents will never pay back to society. And that's the point, isn't it, Sally Jones, that at the time of the next election, what this country needs is not just political change, not just an economic revolution, but a societal and cultural one too. The attitudes of our public sector, our public institutions need to completely change. We need a full recalibration of the relationship between citizen and state.
Lifting that, it's almost like a form of nudge economics, where you're suddenly saying, oh, it's perfectly all right to knock up as big a family as you like, even if you haven't the money to pay for it, because the rest of us poor suckers who budget very carefully to see whether we can afford a second child, and many people decide they can't, the people who are actually earning, because they know that it will absolutely clean out, they'll want to spend on that child or children to give them a good life. But these people who know that they've not got the money to do it anyway just think, oh, happy days, here we go, let's have 4 or 5 or 6. And another problem is that many of the societies from which the migrants come have a tradition of very big families. So again, that's going to apply to them to an even greater extent than some of the more feckless English families who tend to, to go around having large families because they know they can get the tab picked up by the rest of us. So yes, I think we do need an entire recalibration. And it's hard to see. It'll be such a change of mindset. It's obviously, if Labour will still be in likely for 3.5, 4 years, unless something major happens in the meantime.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I mean, obviously they're trying to say, oh, look, we're changing, we hear. They're desperate to stay in power. I mean, they've been trying to do all sorts of, distraction tactics by saying, oh, we're going to have a bonfire of red tape. We're going to make it easier to build nuclear plants. We're going to do this and that. And it's really just I think it is a distraction. It's a red herring, really, to take everybody's minds off what is happening with the lifting of the child benefit cap and everything, which really was a sop to the backbenchers and to the far left of the party. Things like the Hinkley Point, the various extraordinarily, the Hinkley Point, the power, the third phase of that power station and other nuclear plants, where they will spend a total fortune to save maybe one salmon or, to save the life of one tern, some seabird that might just get away. It is red tape gone mad. And even if they cut down on that, which they claim they're going to do, I think a lot of the damage has been done. It is so difficult to get the big infrastructure projects. You look at the way the Great Wall of China and the pyramids were built, in extraordinarily short times, and then how long it takes to get something like HS2 underway and the vast overspend. It's going to take a massive bonfire of red tape to speed all that lot up.
It is. They had this scheme, as you mentioned, at Hinkley Point, and it was to save salmon. And it looked like for every single fish that would be saved, every individual salmon was about $250,000 per salmon, which is almost as expensive as Waitrose. You couldn't make it up, could you? Trevor Kavanagh said that the lifting of the two-child benefit cap, Sally, was a sop to the ethnic vote. You mentioned, across ethnicities, different rates of childbirth, and I think it's actually the white Brits, 14% of them have more than 2 children, whereas other ethnicities, it's 2 or 3 times that. Is there a potential here, a potential argument that this is electoral engineering, that you create an ever larger welfare state in order to stay in power, because of course these people are going to vote for you?
Yes, it's an absolute no-brainer for them, isn't it? I mean, there are a range of different ethnic background, and I mean, some of the different white tribes as well, you know, tend to go in for bigger families than others. But I mean, for example, I mean, the Muslim vote has historically been very, very, very important to Labour, and they've got, in a way, they've got to keep the Muslim vote on side. I mean, it was interesting when you look at the way that many of the South Asian people turned to the Tories because they suddenly they began to see, while the Tories were in power, that some of their beliefs echoed their sort of natural conservative values. So in a way, this may be a way to swing that pendulum back to get, you know, the Pakistani, the Indian, the Bangladeshi background people back to lining up and following the, you know, the Labour views by making things more attractive to them by this type of policy. And obviously, it's always been an absolute shibboleth of the far left that they should have this, you know, no child in poverty. But the problem is that if you encourage people to have more and more children by these positive policies for large families, that's what you're going to get.
Well, indeed, and also giving, you know, those at the bottom end of the economic ladder money, having things like a lifting of the two-child benefit cap, that doesn't actually necessarily target inequality or deprivation. What it does is it cooks the books, because you really have a statistical argument here that you've reduced inequality because you've given money to people at one end of the economic ladder, therefore you've got less equality. There's no evidence that money, those billions in regard to the two-child benefit cap being lifted, will go to the children.
Not at all. It goes into the parents' pockets. I can remember when I was getting child allowance, there were one or two mothers that I knew of who would say, oh, well, that goes to pay the champagne bill. Unfortunately, it didn't in our household. But yes, I mean, it's entirely in the pockets of the parents. It's all very well saying, you know, X percentage of children living in poverty. But you first of all got to have parents who are ethical and sensible enough to use that money.
It eliminates it eliminates poverty, Sally, statistically only. It's a headline.
Yes, it is. It's just a headline. It's just something that Reeves, Starmer and the left can use to try to ingratiate themselves with the even further left and with the families who have no wish to work. We really ought to be skewing our economic policies to make work so much more attractive. I don't want to see every good young workman, every good young doctor, anaesthetist streaming out to go to Australia, America, anywhere else that's better than here, because they can actually keep a decent proportion and work will actually pay for them, that they will actually have a decent life. When you see our public services being run down while we're paying more and more taxes, I mean, it breaks my heart to see the centre of Birmingham with till recently, great piles of rubbish everywhere, rats running all over the place. I mean, it looks like a third world kleptocracy. It doesn't look like the Britain that we once knew, once loved. I want to see old-style Britain come back.
You're not the only one, Sally. I was in the queue at the Co-op 2 days ago trying to buy a steak, which was encased in a Perspex box. And I was born in 1974. This is not a Britain that I recognise. We didn't need security tags on a jar of Nescafe Gold Blend in the 1980s. It's a race to the bottom. Briefly, Sally, two things to check in with you. Can a defence be made of this Labour government, that what they're trying to do is to tackle the problems of this country, tackle inequality and poverty, and that they've inherited a colossal mess from the Tories? Are we letting the Tories off the hook here? Are they the political elephant in the room, given that they were in power for over a decade?
The Tories haven't covered themselves in glory. I think they were shilly-shallying as well. They were, like any government, trying to stay in power. The problem is that, I mean, when you look at somebody like Thatcher, who obviously she's a hate figure for Labour, and many Tories didn't like what she did towards the end. But when you look at the way that she kept to her, she would stubbornly keep to her policies, and if she took a line on something, come hell or high water, she would keep doing it. But neither the Tories under the last regime or the Labour now have got any idea of doing anything but basically floating with the wind. So while obviously Labour did not inherit a good situation, they're making it a great deal worse by lying, by by conniving at allowing society to get worse. I mean, just one little example. My son was in a shop in North London recently, and a thief rushed in, grabbed a bottle of some expensive liquor, ran out with it, and he suddenly saw red. Everybody says you shouldn't tackle thieves. The people in the shop were standing by absolutely helpless. They'd been told not to tackle them in case of violence. He saw red. He ran after this person, grabbed the bottle out of their hands, gave them a piece of his mind and took it back to the shop. And while I was terrified about what might have happened to him, because if that person had had a knife or a whole gang round the corner, it could have been awful. But I thought there are still people who are prepared to stand up and do the right thing. And I felt very proud of him, even though I said, for God's sake, don't do that again.
I don't blame you, Sally. My engineer was applauding those actions. Of course, as a duty of care to our viewers and listeners, we must stress that you've got to put your safety first. But I can understand why he saw red. And in many ways, that instinct is very precious. And it's a diminishing instinct, because if you do step in when you think that a crime has been committed or something wrong is happening, it's likely that you may have your collar felt by the cops as well. Really enjoyed this discussion, Sally. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back again soon, and have an excellent Sunday. Sally Jones, who is a journalist, broadcaster and former BBC star. Very simple. Given what he knew, should the Prime Minister resign? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 7:36. Great to have your company. Given what he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, should Sir Keir Starmer resign? Agnes is in Lincolnshire. Good morning, Agnes.
Good morning, Mark.
Lovely to have you on the show. What do you think about this, Rachel? Is it enough for her to go, or do you think the double act should be retired?
We need a general election to get rid of this Pinocchio of a Prime Minister and his gang of thieves, Mark.
Yeah.
My husband has served 20-odd years in the Royal Navy and 10 years in the Met Police. And he's in the... Excuse me, I'm nervous.
You don't sound it, Agnes. You're shooting from the hip this morning, let me tell you.
And we still pay income tax. He's had a stroke. He's got dementia. And I suffer badly from arthritis. And I've had 2 new hips. We don't get any help whatsoever because we're still paying the income tax. Now, to be fair, let's be honest, this government is a shower of rogues. They need to go.
Yeah.
And then now he actually turns around and says there's no deterrent to stop the boats. Well, there is, Mark. Stop the benefits. Give to those that need.
Now, that's a great line. We've just lost the line to Agnes. She said she was nervous. She was on fire. And she's given the show a brand new slogan, which is stop the boats, stop the benefits. Stop the benefits, stop the boats. Agnes, I think we got you back.
Yes, hello.
You will stop the boats by stopping the benefits. And you'll also stop the large legal migration to this country, which at one point was almost 1 million a year.
Of course we have to, Mark. We've got to think of getting Great Britain back on its route again. It's absolutely disgusting what this Labour... Just go back to Tony Blair. Let's think what he did. He's created an awful lot of this in his government. We need a Margaret Thatcher, and that would be Nigel Farage.
How have you seen the country change over the years, Agnes? Can you sort of describe, the country that you knew and what's been lost?
Oh, I had a wonderful childhood. We grew up. My father was a prisoner of war. He was discharged from the Navy with one lung.
Wow.
Suffered emphysema. And my mother was a teacher. And my grandmother, obviously, we were farmers, local farmers. It's disgusting what they're doing to the local farmers. They forget they work 7 days a week in all weather.
Yes.
They're bringing in food from abroad. Why can't we do as we did then, make our own grown here instead of transporting it in? They're a shower of idiots, a shower of rogues, a shower of freebies, Mark. They've got to go. They've just got to go. The Britain that I knew has gone, and it's gone for a lot of people in our generation.
Agnes, I loved your call. You didn't sound nervous. I want you to be a regular on Talk Breakfast because you spoke a lot of sense. And Agnes there bemoaning a country that's changed so much that no one, let's be very clear, voted for. Agnes, have a lovely Sunday with you and your family and your rather pugnacious dog in the background. We've got a voice note on Benefits Britain from Hev. Hev, it's all yours.
Yeah, actually, talking about the benefits and all the rest of it, I remember, well, I don't really remember much about it, but when my father left the Navy and while he was looking for a job, he obviously went on benefits. And I remember my mother telling me that the benefits people came round, they looked at your property, they looked at your belongings, they told you what you could sell. You only lived on the bare basics. Now everybody has a television and they have a car and everybody thinks they're hard off if they haven't got everything, So maybe we should go back to that sort of idea, and then maybe people will get off their backsides.
I agree with you, Hev. Too many people have very high expectations of what kind of life they're going to have without having to work for it. You only get nice things if you work hard and therefore reap the rewards. You've got a disincentive now to work. With that front page of the Sunday Express, families need wages of 71 grand just to beat benefits, right? Hard-working families with 3 children have to earn £71,000 to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. Jobless families on handouts are also 18 grand better off than neighbours on the national living wage. It's a perverse disincentive to work. Nadia says market will do more than take children out of poverty. It's far more likely that they'll be rich compared to hard-working families. Good morning, Mark. Warwick in Devon here. Great show as ever. It might have been asked before this morning, but silly questions. 1, why are these jumbo benefit amounts not taxed? Number 2, will these free breakfast clubs that Stalin, as he describes Starmer as Stalin, keeps banging on about, disappear due to the child benefit cap now being removed? And Gary says, outside of the UK, national deception due to these lies, the international markets will now react, which has a much larger effect on the UK. Graham in Manchester. Starmer, Lammy, Reeves and the rest of the Labour MPs should not be allowed to resign because their employment should be terminated for proven treachery, lies, deceit and treason to the country, which they claim to love and the public they serve. Andy in Liverpool, no, Mark, the Prime Minister should not resign. The whole party should. It is full of liars. So, given what he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole and Rachel's lies to the public. Should Starmer resign? This is Talk.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:45, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. Happy Sunday, one and all, whatever you're up to. Perhaps you're just kind of like getting the fried eggs going on the frying pan. Maybe you've got the kettle on. Perhaps you're still slumbering in bed. You might be at the tail end of a night shift, or you're in your cab, or you're working as a security guard, or you're catching up on a bit of overtime as a builder. Whatever you're doing, we salute you for your efforts, right? Your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. Unfortunately, we now have a perverse welfare state in which you are rewarded for not contributing and just staying home. Families need wages of £71,000 to beat those on benefits, is the headline of today's Express. We'll get to more of that shortly, but can we just have a quick voice note from Vivian on that very subject?
I was just wondering, does Starmer still have his weekly meet with the King? Because he's always out of the country, so I don't know whether this goes on and whether the King is in collaboration with all this that's going on in his country. I mean, by the time this lot will be out, if the King is still alive, there'll be nothing left for him to rule, will there? They'll have run it into the ground. I actually think they might be offering a scorched earth policy, to be honest. Very, very worried about it all. Anyway, these benefits should be stopped, and definitely for not any foreign people. Thanks, Mark. Have a good show. Take care. Bye.
Vivian, a beautifully put voice note there. Really, really enjoyed listening to you. By the way, when you do your voice notes, try if you can to turn the radio down, because I want to hear you in crystal clear 2020, because otherwise, you know, we get a little muddled with the message. But my goodness, what a great voice note that was from Vivian, who was in full voice this morning. Should the Prime Minister now resign, given everything he knew? The switchboard is full. Book your place on the show for later in the programme. Dolan's dispatch in 10 minutes' time. I'll be dealing with the terrible twosome of Starmer and Reeves. But next up, let's get the latest royal news in the company of Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark. Those meetings with the King do continue, with the Prime Minister just answering what Vivian was saying there. That is part of the Queen always did it, the King always does it, but I'm not sure he can give advice, but I'm not sure he can turn around to the Prime Minister and say, "Sling your hook, mate," which presumably lots of your listeners want to happen this morning to him. But it's not quite like that. But they do continue on a weekly basis. That is part of the Prime Minister and the King's relationship.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned those royal audiences. They're weekly, is that right, Rupert?
Yes, and you remember, yes, they are weekly. Obviously looking at their diaries, that is the intention, that they take place weekly, and it is a chance for the Prime Minister to sort of brief the King on what is going on, maybe security issues that he's privy to all the protocol of the government. Now, obviously, the budget might be part of the discussion next week, or even last week's meeting. So it will be interesting to see. Well, we won't hear anything. We never hear anything about him because they are deemed to be a private. The Queen, the late Queen, obviously had plenty of prime ministers. Some she didn't get on so well with, some she did. But they were important part of the sort of role of government and the role of the monarchy.
And I think it was Tony Blair, Rupert, who said that he found those weekly audiences with the Queen quite helpful because it enabled him to reflect on the policies of the government and tap into the wisdom of the monarch. The Queen was a very experienced stateswoman, and the King is too. So it may be that he can't just dissolve Parliament because, of course, that would be against the will of the people and against our Constitution, but he can advise and possibly even help the Prime Minister.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of it. Telling him what's going on. And obviously the King will be reading and hearing, and his advisors will be reading what's going on. And obviously from what His Majesty's government, remember, that is what they are. They are His Majesty's government, and he is in a position to advise. But it's up to the Prime Minister whether he heeds that advice or takes notice of what the King is saying. At the moment, it appears that Keir Starmer is more interested in hearing the views of his backbenchers.
Does a political crisis like the one engulfing Number 11 at the moment ever affect the monarch, Rupert?
Well, it might be affecting the worker pay that they've got to pay to their staff and everything, so surely their costs will have gone up. But obviously, the royal family's finances is something we don't hear about, and obviously we have been hearing about the fact that Prince Edward lives in Bagshot Park with a peppercorn rent, we're hearing, with again sort of question marks around that. So it's not straightforward for the royal family and their finances because they're not often disclosed.
What's the latest on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Is he home and hosed, Rupert?
Well, I don't think so. He obviously hasn't responded to what they've asked in the States. I think it's now trying to work out when he's going to leave Royal Lodge, maybe going to Sandringham. There was even talk, maybe he would go to the Middle East and find somewhere to live there. Maybe Bahrain, who have a very good relationship with our royal family, the King of Bahrain. It used to be a British, we ran the country until 1971, I believe. So there is a strong tie with Bahrain. And actually, I know Bahrain do sponsor the Royal Windsor Horse Show. So there's a strong relationship. Maybe somewhere he could go and live in exile in Bahrain. So, but the other thing is, he's still Vice Admiral Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and defence chiefs are saying, why isn't he stripped of this honorary title? Remember, he did serve in the Navy for 22 years, fought in the Falklands War, so does actually have an official rank, which he could use, and that can't be taken away from him. But the Vice Admiral was an honorary title given to him when he was 55. He could have been promoted to Admiral when he was 60, but that obviously didn't happen because obviously the Epstein story had broken, and at that stage he was still is persona non grata within royal circles.
What's the latest from Montecito, California, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Rupert?
Well, We got the video. We got the Netflix program coming out on the 3rd. Can't wait.
Can't
for that,
wait.
Mark.
I mean, I've cancelled. I cancelled all my engagements. Rupert, do you want to grab a beer with me and we can have popcorn and enjoy it together?
Well, we can see how to not cook a turkey. How we can elevate our Christmas experience. Anyway, I'm sure I'll be watching it. I'll let you know what I think next Sunday if I'm talking to you, Mark. Mainly, once again, there are stories that the Queen, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, did want to move into Windsor Castle, but the Queen said that wasn't going to happen. They could have used some of the private apartments there. They said no. And actually gave them Frogmore Cottage. But even that probably wasn't deemed big enough for the Duchess of Sussex. And obviously when they moved into Frogmore Cottage, they then did their uptails and atom over to California once they'd moved into Frogmore Cottage. So again, they do like the grandeur. Certainly the Duchess of Sussex does. As we heard last week, she got announced as the Duchess of Sussex when she went into a room with one journalist in it. So you know she's got delusions of grandeur and is still operating with those delusions.
Most definitely. You haven't been briefed on this, Rupert, but I know you'll have a view. And it's a developing story, and it's Meghan's brother, her half-brother, Thomas Markle Jr., who actually has a YouTube channel. And I reported on this on my own royal channel, which is the Mark Dolan Show on YouTube. He's done a 1-hour video with an excoriating attack on his younger half-sister, because he's stuck in the Philippines with Thomas Markle Sr., his father, who's an older man who is not enjoying the best of health. There isn't much money to spare either. And he's furious about the lack of support from Meghan Markle. He described her in the video, and most of it I can't broadcast on a family show, Rupert, but he described his sister as a soulless, empty sack. Now, this guy's got previous. He wrote a letter to Prince Harry before the wedding saying, "Don't do it. My sister is a wrong 'un." But is there any further damage that Meghan Markle's half-brother can inflict on his sister, on her career and on her brand?
Well, my personal view is the Duchess of Sussex does a pretty good job of ruining her own brand. So forget the machinations of the brother. It's just very sad. And you hear also the way that she seems to rewrite the fact that Thomas Markle Sr. were actually brought up Meghan hugely his own. She seems to forget that actually she has a father. And it's a sort of writing him out of her family history. And that's the sad part, because she wasn't just brought up with Doria. Yes, it was a family that was separated, but Thomas Markle was a huge contributor and was devoted to his daughter. Now it all unravelled around the wedding, and obviously he's not, as you say, in the best of health. But unfortunately, you know, Meghan does talk about families and coming together. Well, she may just want to start looking at her own family, because this is one divided ship, and a lot of it is created because of her. And, you know, I think that's where it has to start. She has to try and offer some hope. But for Thomas Markle Jr., I don't think it's going to change where Meghan is going. She's just probably ignoring it, and that's part of the problem. And I feel, you know, for her father, who's obviously, as you say, not in the best of health.
Most definitely. I think that Thomas Markle Jr.'s negativity towards Meghan Markle, his attacks are now priced in regarding the brand. There's probably nothing that could shock you based around what this man has said, although he is threatening to write 2 books. But it's not a good look for Meghan Markle, who casts herself as someone with family values and as a global philanthropist, as her 81-year-old father struggles in a Philippine high-rise.
Well, and that's the point. That's what it just think, you know, maybe you need to sort out your own family. Now, if you know, she presumably has got plenty of money. She could help. But obviously the relationship is broken. She's ignored her father, basically. And it's very sad and she, you know, Harry split from his family. She split from her family. There's one common denominator. And it doesn't take the brains of an archbishop to work out what that common denominator is. The Duchess of Sussex has created these divisions because she's moving from this country to go to California, entitled to do it. But Harry's relationship with his family is fractured. Likewise, Meghan's is very fractured with her family.
Yes, the whole thing is quite heartbreaking. And you mentioned about Thomas Markle Sr.'s efforts as a father over the years to Meghan Markle. It's my understanding that he treated her like a princess from day one, that Doria was absent for several years, and Thomas Markle, whilst being a busy lighting director, was left literally holding the baby. And in this latest video, Thomas Markle Jr. says, my father spent $750,000 on Meghan Markle and is getting nothing back.
Well, that's the point. She seems to have forgotten that her father was a significant part of her childhood and did an awful lot for her. Yet she has rewritten, and when you hear her being interviewed, she's completely purged any relationship with her father and the impact on her father had on her life. And I think that's, again, very sad, and actually doesn't cast Meghan in a particularly good light, because, you know, she has, as I say, he did his best for her, and unfortunately he's now been excluded from her, and I'm sure that is heartbreaking for him as well.
Rupert, I sincerely hope you are available in a week's time. The most compelling voice on royal stories that you'll get. Talk's royal correspondent Rupert Bell. Rupert, have an excellent Sunday. There's only one story in town, folks. Don't worry about Meghan Markle and Harry. Don't worry about the Duke and Duchess of Stubble Standards. What about another terrifying double act, Starmer and Reeves? Given what he knew about Rachel's lies, about the alleged black hole that never was, should the Prime Minister resign? That is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. It's in 3 minutes' time. It might get me cancelled. Good.
Across the UK on on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
To you, I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast, and breaking this morning, it's been revealed that Keir Starmer knew about Chancellor Rachel Reeves's pre-budget lies and signed off on the messaging around a non-existent £30 billion black hole. Rachel Reeves is now on resignation watch, but if she goes, will she take Starmer down with her? Meanwhile, Labour's biggest donor turns on Rachel Reeves, saying that Wednesday's budget hit ordinary workers the most. We'll bring you coverage of this growing political crisis, which threatens to engulf Starmer's administration. Easy to forget, amid all of the political incompetence and scandal, that the policies of this budget reward those who don't work. Front page of the Sunday Express today. Families need wages of £71,000 to beat those on benefits. If it doesn't pay to work, let me tell you, that does not end well for the country. And my question to you this morning on this crisp Sunday morning, given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole, given that he knew about Rachel's lies, should the Prime Minister now resign? My phone number is 03444991000. Book your place on the show. Leave a voice note. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Whatever you're up to this morning, perhaps you're still slumbered in bed. Maybe you've got some fried eggs going on the pan. You've got the kettle on. Perhaps you're at the tail end of a night shift. Whatever you're up to, we are here for you. This is Talk, and this is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of Alarm Clock Britain, against whom this government have waged war. Now, you can hear us on the radio. Delighted to have you listening on DAB+, in-app and online. Don't forget, you need to delete the Talk TV app and download the Talk app. Or you can watch us. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Busy 2 hours to come. As the saying goes, let's talk. And as always, at this time, 8:05 in the morning, we begin with Dolan's Dispatch. It's hard to know what's worse, the shocking, ruinous policies of this government or their endless lies. What we've witnessed this week is the tipping point of the worst administration in 100 years. A shameless nadir culminating in a perfect storm of crap economics and incompetent, deceitful politics. And now, even Labour's supporters are deserting them. The governing party's biggest donor, Sharon Graham, the General Secretary of the Unite Union, said the freezing of thresholds was a shameful stealth tax, blasting it as underhand. Underhand indeed. Welcome, Sharon, to this wonderful government of ours. She said that the Chancellor's stealth tax increase has hit ordinary workers such as health workers, engineers and tank drivers. She is, of course, right. Don't forget the manufacturing unions detest the ramping up of net zero as well, another Labour crime. Meanwhile, the left-wing Resolution Foundation, one of Labour's favourite think tanks, has said that the hike in the minimum wage will destroy jobs and will spike youth unemployment in particular. The Tony Blair Foundation have parted company with this government. They've urged the Number 10 administration to scrap the workers' rights legislation, which, having been watered down, still remains absolute kryptonite for businesses already struggling to keep their heads above water in Labour's sea of taxation and red tape. Some good news, though. Not every member of the Reeves family is dishonest and economically illiterate. The Chancellor's uncle, Terry Smith, has said it's going to cost the working class billions of pounds and leave Britain worse off. He said that this is the worst budget I've ever heard. This is a member of the Reeves family, her uncle no less. He said it's the worst budget I've ever heard, and I'm 73, so I've been around for quite a few. He said, Rachel is my niece and is a lovely person, but the government is totally out of their depth. What a rock star Terry Smith is. A member of the Reeves family, far better suited to number 11 than Rachel. However, I will part company with Mr. Smith on one issue. He calls his niece a nice person. I'm sorry, but you're not a nice person if you lie to the public about the nation's finances for political gain. And you're not a nice person if you crank up taxes on ordinary working people to keep your ultra left-wing backbenchers happy and throwing them some socialist red meat, all at the expense of alarm clock Brits. You're not a nice person if your policies destroy growth, exposing this country to ever-spiralling debt and diminishing living standards. You're not a nice person if your policies feed inflation, which is a horrendous tax on everyone, felt most keenly by the poorest in our society. You're not a nice person if your policies will lead to vast liabilities that British children that haven't even been born yet will be forced to bear. Our grandchildren will be asking, hey, why is the national debt so high? Why is the country that you've handed to us so broken? And we'll have to tell them it's because we had to pay for a country in which up to 10 million working age people were not active in the economy. That we had to pay for a country where over 53% of the population, millions of whom are perfectly healthy and able to work, are taking out more from the system than they contribute. And we can tell our grandkids that we allowed a narrative to take hold that wealth creators, people in big houses, people with posh cars and second homes, may God forbid, are the enemy, even though it's wealth creators that pay the lion's share of income tax, even though they are the ones that take the risks, that work the long hours, that start businesses, the ones who invest, the ones who employ people so that the state doesn't have to. Somebody called Rachel, this is what we'll tell our grandchildren, we'll have to say, I'm so sorry, darling, little Johnny, but someone called Rachel from accounts decided that wealth creators were the enemy. Now, whilst we focus on Reeves this week, at the heart of this malign project is Sir Keir Starmer, a hideous charlatan, a man who is dishonest on a cellular level. Existing in perennial lawyer mode, this guy is nothing more than a political chatbot, a shallow, preening vomitarian of platitudes. This hollow man, who doesn't even own his own suit, is nothing more than the human manifestation of ChatGPT software gone horribly wrong. Starmer knew about Rachel's lies, about the false narrative of a £30 billion black hole. He had seen the OBR numbers. He knew about the fiscal headroom as she addressed the nation in early November, doing her best Pinocchio impression. Reeves and Starmer come as a package, just like the Krays, and they're just as dangerous. United in incompetence, united in socialist ideology, united in fear of their own backbenchers, united in a lust for power over the well-being of the people who elected them, united in a pathological Tourette's-like level of dishonesty. The clock is ticking. Reeves is on borrowed time. The markets don't appreciate being lied to, and I would argue that her dishonesty in the run-up to the budget is not just a sackable offence, but potentially a criminal one too. Gross misconduct in public office. Fraud, disinformation, lies. I'm sorry, folks, but I'm making a moral and political verdict here. Never let anyone tell you that the left are the good people. Their twisted economic and societal ideology, which has never worked, is once again leading to misery and ruin. Socialism, the failed idea that never dies. Now, these politicians, Starmer and Reeves, they can only sustain their failed project through misinformation, propaganda, authoritarianism, and lies. Whilst multiple members of this government have had to resign in scandal, and while Rachel from Accounts awaits her inevitable P45, at the heart of this dumpster fire of an administration is Sir Keir Starmer. His identity, his mentality, his modus operandi. With his endless U-turns, his inability to define a woman, his labelling of people concerned about illegal immigration far right, his preening to the ethnic vote, his preening to the work-shy vote, his taking the knee to the latest woke cause, his cynical and opportunist cheerleading for more ruinous COVID lockdowns, with his doublespeak of smashing the gangs whilst illegal immigration explodes, with his doublespeak of protecting working people whilst clobbering them with taxes, inflation and unemployment, with his doublespeak of growing the economy by shrinking it, let me assure you, he is not a good person. Rayner is awful, of course she is Angela Rayner. Yvette Cooper, another hack, another absolute journeywoman of a politician. Lammy is awful, don't get me started on Mastermind himself. Reeves, obviously. But at the heart of this toxic administration is the worst Prime Minister in living memory. This government is rotten to the core. And like every fish, it rots from the head. God help us. 8:14, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. John is in Newcastle. Good morning, John.
And good morning to you. And I agree with everything you've said, which is quite amazing in that sense. Basically, I looked at figures the other day. In the 1960, which is some years off, of course, 1960, we had a 13 million population in this country. As small islands we are. And yet, it's not 30 million anymore. It's not even 60 million double. It's 68 million. It's 68 million.
Yeah.
It's nearly as big as what the French population is, and the French and the France is 2.5 times the size of not England but Britain. And we have now these illegal immigrants who the Tories failed. I call the Conservative, Labour and Liberals liars, thieves, traitors. That, in my book, that's definitely it. And, you know, it's just disgusting what's going on in this country. And what we hear yesterday as well is illegal immigrants who should not be here. Why should I buy a passport why should I do that when people can come across here just willy-nilly and get benefits which were own people? Well, old people are second-class citizens, quite a lot of them. They go to food banks. But you never hear these politicians, Tory, Labour or Liberal, talking about these food banks. Where I live, there's at least 6 now. 6. And it's disgusting because I've seen 2 where there's queues of our own people waiting to be fed.
Yeah.
And these people will be cold. A lot of them will be cold. And yet an illegal immigrant can go into a hotel, irrespective if it's 2 or 3 or 4-star hotel. He can sit there and keep warm all day. He can have 3 square meals a day. He can have £38 spending money, you know, which is disgusting. And where our own people are going hungry. No, I have no time for these people anymore. As I've just said, the liars, the thieves, the traitors, Conservative, Labour and Liberal, we've got to get that out of our mind, and we've got to look forward to something different, because if we don't, we're going to go further and further down the ruinous road. And that's just about it. I cannot say any more. And what about this? We've got such a population as it is. Now they're telling us that they're going to give people to have more than 2 children. Yes, you have what you can afford, not what the state can afford. There was a man called Kennedy, you know, the President of the United States. Do it for your country, not let your country do it for you. And that's words that, you know, last time. Do it for your country, not for yourself. For ourselves, and it just beggars belief, this country today. Of my decades gone by, I've never known such a farce, and they're still not going to stop these people coming across. The Tories could have done it. if they had getting out of the European Court of Human Rights. Possibly that would have been a great start. And what about other countries? Hungary, for instance, who'll only not take any other than Christians in that country. What about another country which I can't remember the name of, but it pays a certain amount of money to the European Union.
Oh, that's Hungary. I'm glad you mentioned. So you're talking about the fines. So I believe it's Hungary and Viktor Orban, John, who is happily paying a fine every day of €1 million because he's breaking European Union rules by having a closed border. And he said, I'm happy to pay €1 million a day, worth every penny.
Exactly. Well, why can't we do it? As I say, our population on this small island is massive, and it just goes on, and it's a disgrace to the rest of the people, as I've said, who go to food banks. Nobody talks. Have you ever heard the Tories, Labour and Liberal talk about food banks? No. But we know that they're in abundance right throughout this land, and where standards is going down and down and down. When I was a young boy, I remember, that's a long time ago, of course, they took us to the Memorial Clinic, a class, and we all got checked out for our teeth. Nowadays, we've even heard, all them years later, I'm 80, all them years later, we've heard of people taking out their own teeth. It's just an absolute farce. And the NHS is not fit for purpose. I don't talk about the doctors, the nurses, the porters, the cleaners.
Correct.
No, I don't talk about them. I talk about the system that allowed 7.5 million people to go on a waiting list. Whether it was Conservative, whether it was Labour or Liberal, they're a farce. And when people get that out of their mind and get something done about it, far be the better.
John, you are a hero. I'm so grateful for that call. Please call again soon. The calls to this show, the voice notes, the texts, they're not part of the show. They are the show, because this programme, Talk Breakfast, this network, Talk, is there for you. And what we've got to do is have a national conversation. We've got to point out that we've got a rapidly changing country, a broken country that no one paid for. Sorry, we're paying for it. No one voted for it. And I think the message from the calls and texts so far, and a remark made earlier by Sally Jones, former BBC star, is actually what we need to do is take our country back. This is 8:20.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:23 Talk Breakfast. Given that he knew about the non-existent fiscal black hole of £30 billion, should the Prime Minister resign? Amanda says yes, Mark. Starmer and Reeves should both go and take the whole rotten lot of the government with them. Neil said, Mark, as soon as Starmer said he was behind the budget, alarms should have started ringing. Mark in Birmingham, I reckon all businesses should down tools no matter who they are and should walk out. Don't open until such time the government get it into their thick skulls that the backbone of this country has broken. That's Mark in Birmingham. I'm delighted to say, to react to the big stories of the day, I'm joined in the studio by two pals of mine, Sebastian Salek, a Labour councillor, and Peter Barnes, political strategist. And Sebastian, an unwelcome headline, I would have thought from your point of view, on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Prime Minister signed off on black hole lies. Is he in trouble?
I don't think so once you dig into the numbers, because the Times had some very good reporting on this, and they're putting forward the government's line, which is when you factor in winter fuel, when you factor in the aborted welfare cuts, when you factor in the two-child benefit cap, that's £9.25 billion that you have to account for there, and it takes you £5 billion into the red. So there clearly was a problem when you look at all of these things that the OBR wasn't looking at themselves. So I think that explains the mismatch.
£5 billion is exactly what the government would have saved if they had scrapped some of those PIP payments that Labour backbenchers refused to accept and vote for. And about £3 billion is what they would save if they hadn't scrapped the two-child benefit cap. So these are choices rather than, an egregious financial context.
Yeah, so benefits wasn't really a choice because they couldn't get it through their MPs. And I agree probably with both of you on that I think that was important and it should have happened.
It was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
I think it was in balance. And look, we can have a broader conversation about the state of the welfare system, which I don't think works for anybody, least of all those who claim it. But the two-child benefit cap was a choice, you're right, and I think it was the right choice because budgets aren't just about balancing the books, they're about ensuring fairness. And this was a big, big step towards fairness in this country.
Fairness? I don't think the Labour Party would even understand what the word even means. You're asking those who actually want to get on with their life, get a job, do the right thing, have been punished by that budget. Mark, you're perfectly right. These budgets are about choices. The economy is about choices. And the choices this Labour Party has taken has left to people leaving the country, it's left to low investment, low growth, low productivity. Every single marker down. All across the way. And that is because the Labour Party do not understand that you cannot tax your way to prosperity, you don't tax your way to growth, you don't have net zero, all of this stuff. It kills the economy.
So what do you do instead?
First of all, you roll back most of the red tape.
They are cutting red tape.
Absolutely. Planning.
House building.
House building, well, the target you're nowhere going to hit, 1.5 million.
Yeah, I'm going to throw you a bone. I'm going to throw you a bone.
1.3 to 1.4. Were they the leaked ones?
No, Sebastian, I'm going to throw you a bone here and say that Labour have done good things on planning and that the political will is there to build more houses. Yeah. I'm going to give you that.
Thank you so much.
It might be there
but the red tape on business is something that's... my viewers and listeners are tearing their hair out about that.
What specifically?
Red tape on business. Well, basically, things like the employment workers, the stuff, the paperwork, the administration, it costs them money, it costs them time as well.
It does. I mean, look, if you want to get into red tape on business, then the big elephant in the room is Brexit, isn't it? We want to be able to go into the weeds there and talk about all of the pain that has brought, the number of businesses that don't ship to the EU that have lost a huge market because of red tape.
So why compound the problem? Well, if you accept that there is a problem, why make it worse? Why make the prospect of hiring people more expensive? You then complain about, you've not enough young people in work. You've killed off two of the main industries that they work in, the retail sector and the hospitality sector. Dead.
Well, you've got
that's the reality of it. The double side, the fact that nobody in the Labour Party thinks longer than the end of the nose.
Well, no, because Labour is taxing big companies like Amazon, who have huge warehouses.
Tell that to the small and medium-sized industries that have been decimated.
And they will be cheering, Peter, because and it seems like you're not across this policy. I'm going to explain it to you now. They are taxing large companies like Amazon, making them pay higher business rates so they can give a business rate
I believe that when it
to
happens.
high street hospitality retail businesses.
Then why did the head of the hospitality union come out and say that they are absolutely against the budget? Why is every
this
industry
is in a separate government bill that's currently going through Parliament?
So that's one bit, but I'm talking about the budget.
But you asked me why he came out to talk about that, and I'm telling you that this particular policy measure that I'm talking about is not in
well,
the
that's
budget.
not the one I was talking about.
Well, no,
but
no,
anyway,
anyway,
we're talking across policy. But what I'm saying is, major business leaders, your own trade union leader, has come
Were you
out.
aware of that policy?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
So then
And
why did you sound so surprised?
Because I'm.
And why did you say that they were getting taxed through the nose?
Because if you let me finish the sentence, I will get to it. Because fundamentally, because it is a further tax, when you have national insurance increases, that is a tax. I know the Labour Party don't really see it as a tax because it's not, got to do our contribution and our fair share and all this
sorry,
nonsense.
Are you talking about the national insurance increases from the last budget?
But yes,
so
because
you're
it's still
back
a tax.
A little way now.
A little way. It's
Yeah.
still having a devastating effect on
We've
companies.
had another budget since. You're grasping a little bit if you're trying to criticise this and you're going for something that was over a year
to
ago.
be fair to Peter, the legacy of the Nix tax raid in the Halloween budget continues to this day. The IMF downgraded British growth following that previous budget, and there's a general picture. We can look at individual aspects of it, and I'm sure that not everything that Labour is doing is wrong. There'll be some positive things in there, but the headline figures are a problem, aren't they? Growth anemic, 1% at best for the foreseeable future.
Well, no, forecast to rise to 1.5%.
Ooh,
faster than our G7 peers. Faster than
0 to 1
economies.
is very impressive than like 1 to anything
Well,
else.
I think we get to 1.5 in 3 years from now. So we're looking at 1% of the moment, which is probably therefore per capita a recession, really, once you look at individual viewers and listeners to this show who are going to be poorer. Inflation, almost 4%, right? And it's going to come down by 0.5% thanks to the government's policies in the next 12 months. That's a quote from Rachel Reeves. Well, that's still double the Bank of England's target.
Well, no, because we're forecast from the OBR to hit our target in 27. So that is positive progress, right? That inflation is set to come down to where it needs to be.
It's going to be 2% by 2027.
That's what the OBR is saying.
Well, it's currently 2025. Inflation is almost 4%. And in the next 12 months, according to the Chancellor, it'll come down by 0.5%.
But it's heading in the right direction, isn't it?
Well, but in a
year's
year's time, when we're wrapping our Christmas presents for Christmas 2026, inflation will still be double the Bank of England's target.
No, because it's currently below the target. It's going to go down.
In that case, Rachel Reeves is wrong because she said it will come down by 0.5% in the next 12 months.
But double the target is 4%. And it's currently at 3.8. And if it's going to come down, it's not going to be 4%.
It's almost double the target,
no,
isn't it?
It's actively moving away from the target. We're close to the target.
Is it 2/3 of the target? I mean, it's too much. It was 2% under Rishi Sunak.
Clutching at straws as an argument.
But no, hang on. Let me just get this right, because if I'm wrong...
He's had 3 Weetabix this morning.
I wish I'd been that indulgent.
You need at least 4 Weetabix.
Can somebody get a coffee for Sebastian?
No. If I'm wrong about this, I'll accept this. If I've misunderstood you both. But you're saying that we're going to get closer to double the target, which is 4%. When I'm telling you we are moving away from double the target, we're moving downwards towards the target.
No, I said it'll come from close to 4 to close to 3.5, which is still almost double the target. And inflation. I'm disappointed that the Chancellor didn't address inflation in the budget. It was a fleeting mention because it's a tax on everyone, especially the poorest, and that's not great on Labour's watch, is it?
It depends who you are. If you're a saviour, if you've got a mortgage, it's a good thing. But look, I'm not here to defend high inflation.
But inflation is a disaster for those at the end of the bottom of the economic ladder.
No, you're right.
Because it's a tax they can't escape. Because they have to eat and they have to heat their homes.
No, you're completely right. And that's why bringing inflation down is a good thing. And that's why hitting its target in a couple of years is also a good thing.
Well, no, but it's too slow. You see, you wouldn't have as much inflation if you hadn't had a public sector pay rises, if you didn't increase the minimum wage. All of these policies are inflationary. Again, it's a choice.
It is a massive balance of priorities, and you've got to let that land somewhere.
The priorities seem to land with people that don't want to go to work compared to the people that do.
It's
because
not about
the people that
wanting
do
to go to
are
work,
leaving
Peter.
the
Don't
country.
be so horribly uncompassionate.
Well, uncompassionate.
Yes.
Tell that to the people that are now having to cut back because they have to pay more taxes for other people. They do exist.
Don't pitch working people against those that need help.
Well, I'm going to have to, because it's not everybody that needs help.
No, you're not.
Because what you actually do to help, you help people to get the economy working for everybody. You don't take from the rich to give to the poor, you just make everybody poorer. This is basic economics that you learn in A-level.
Why are you making people fight each other? Why are you whipping up anger?
The Labour Party is.
Why are you
the
whipping
Labour
up
Party
anger?
is
Why are you
dividing the
telling
nation.
working people, those who can't afford to work, are your enemy?
I'm not. The Labour Party is.
Well, then why
Rachel
do you
Reeves
have a problem with benefits claimants?
I don't have a problem with benefits claimants.
Like
what I do have a problem with is the Labour Party weaponising them, because it's your party that's doing it.
Why is the Labour Party weaponising benefits claimants?
Because you're now saying that we have to be compassionate to those people that don't want to go to work.
I've always said that. That's nothing new.
Because
I think no. This is it. This is exactly the problem. It's not that they don't want to go to work.
Not all of them, because you can't use minority cases, as you've just accused me of doing. So there are some people in this country that don't want to go to work, that use the benefit system as a living type.
Do you know what the fraud rate is within the benefit system?
It doesn't matter.
Of course it matters, because we're going to put some numbers on this. Do you know what the fraud rate is?
Not off the top of my head,
Last
no.
year it was 2.2%.
Well, I don't think it should be that high. And I think we should do more to tackle it. So you think it's okay for people to take other people's money? So why?
At all. I think the fraud rate also ideally would be 0, but 2.2 in any system where there's going to be fraud is pretty good.
Well, we're also
and what I'm saying is I don't
tell
want
the
to
truth
take
on that.
those people and allow that to dictate the narrative for people who genuinely need it, which is the vast majority.
You're going to have to explain, Sebastian, why people are leaving the country because of the budget, because of the Labour Party, the lack of prosperity, the lack of options, the lack of vision and direction of this country. People are choosing to leave.
Okay.
There is a reason for that.
Well, let's give Sebastian a chance to answer that after the break. I'll be asking Sebastian a simple question. It's a fair question, which is, have things improved for you since Labour won the election? It's 8:33. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Given the fact that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole should the Prime Minister resign. How about this from an unnamed texter? Good morning, Mark. This government has to go altogether. They're full of sleaze, corruption, they're anti-British, nothing sticks. They just carry on. They mark their own homework. Now puberty blockers on 10-year-old children. They're dangerous. The whole lot have got to go. Maybe a load of prosecutions. They cannot carry on. Nobody wants them. This is supposed to be a democracy. Nobody voted for anything they've done. We need to get rid of the whole lot. Kevin in East Sussex. Good morning, Mark. Your Dolan's dispatch was as good as... Oh, sorry. John's dispatch was as good as your 8 a.m. dispatch. You're so right. John in Newcastle spoke a lot of truth. He said, true words from you both. God help us, says Kevin in East Sussex. Thank you so much for that. We've got a viewer in Birmingham who thinks we should have a national strike. I wouldn't rule it out. With me in the studio, we've got Labour councillor Sebastian Salek and Peter Barnes, political strategist. Sebastian, are you not worried about the direction of travel, though, which is low growth, high debts, high unemployment, and rich people leaving the country?
Lots to unpack there. I'm worried about the economic picture in general. I think we are on a positive course. It is going to take time, though. There is no magic in this world. The economy moves fast and slow in the sense that things can change very quickly, but the big picture takes a while to transform into something that we would be happy with. Look, I think there was a lot to be relieved about, frankly. I think if I can sum up my response to the budget in one word, it is relief. I did think it was going to be a lot worse. I thought it would be a really tricky one to come on here and talk about. But a lot of the forecasts from the OBR are really positive. We've got net debt forecast to drop, and all these positions that we came in with after 14 years of the Tories, that was a really horrible place to be, and it's looking like it's going to improve.
So credit to Labour that the economic picture was better than feared. Why didn't Rachel Reeves tell us that at the beginning of November when she said she needs tax rises?
Well, because it was still bad, as we talked about in the previous section.
No, we have emails from the OBR going back to September saying
that the OBR are liars.
The outlook is positive.
No, I'm not saying the OBR are liars.
Somebody lied.
Well, no,
somebody
I don't
lied
think
to the
somebody
country. Either
did.
the OBR or Rachel Reeves did.
No, I think
somebody
they were-
lied. But the two people cannot say either ends of the story and them both be correct.
Well, they can, because it depends what you take into account, doesn't it? And as I explained in the previous segment, there were many costs that the government were factoring in, because you have to, that the OBR weren't, and therefore you're going to reach different conclusions if you use different numbers.
Yeah.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Now, here's not really.
Why doesn't it make
for
sense?
me, because, again, it's not just the fact that they'd said it as a one lie. They did it again and again and again to justify one of the biggest tax grabs we've ever seen.
But do you understand the concept,
I
though?
understand. Try not to insult my intelligence.
Well,
darling.
no, I'm
But
sorry,
what
I don't want to do that, but it just
you
seems
kind of
like
are,
you're
though,
not
because-
really grasping
No,
it.
I am, but I just don't grasp the fact that you cannot get it into your head that Rachel Reeves got in front of the country and Keir Starmer by saying this lie.
Which lie? Again,
This black hole. The black hole. I don't. What do you mean you don't understand? How can you not understand this? It's all over the front pages. It has been for days, if not months, about the idea that the Labour Party have manufactured a financial crisis to justify a tax grab that has squeezed the middle class out of existence.
Let's try a different approach here. You're a political strategist.
Yes.
Explain to me the political strategy of lying to your people.
Well, there isn't one, because
So
the reason
why would they do it?
Because they're not very smart people, and they want to. And this
But
was
what was the logic?
ideology.
Surely there
Because
must be
there
a
isn't
logic.
any logic in it. You're asking me to find logic in children.
I mean,
It
what
doesn't make any
happened?
sense.
What happened to the £30 billion black hole that we had at the beginning of November? Where is it?
Well, a couple of things. The picture from the OBR was better than expected. They came back with revised numbers. That changes the picture a lot. And this other part is that there are these numbers that have not been factored in, that once you add them, puts you into the red, and then you have money to find. You have to plug the gap.
It's not exactly the same level of money, though, is it?
So my question into the break was, have things improved since Labour won the election? What do you think, Peter? Have they?
Oh, sorry, say that again?
Have things improved since Labour won the election? If so, what's
I
improved?
can't think of a single thing it's got better in.
If you had to, like, you know, one of those balloon debates where you've chosen, you know, the sort of argument that you're actually you're on the side of, you know, Labour have done a good job.
I think, if anything, it's the one thing I will give this Labour government is that they've shown us just how rotten everything is. They've shown us how terrible Westminster is. How at the heart of it is nothing but greed, corruption, and incompetence. That is what has been on show in Westminster over the last God knows how many months of misery we've had to endure. It's absolutely ridiculous. This budget and this government have to go. And Keir Starmer is as dirty as the rest of them in all of this. He is the First Lord of the Treasury. That is his job.
Sebastian, is it a concern that since... See, I'll accept your argument, things have got to get worse before they get better, so let's see and we'll regroup in a couple of years' time. But is it a concern of yours that things are provably worse than they were under Rishi Sunak in July 2024?
Look, in some senses they are, but in some senses they aren't. If you are a parent, for example, you can now send your child to a breakfast club. They can be fed a nourishing meal in the morning. You can go to work and earn money and pay taxes that go into the exchequer. If you are a renter now, you can be safe in your own home. You know you're not going to get thrown out just because your landlord feels like it or they want to boot you out and raise the rent for somebody else. There are also measurable ways that things are getting better for normal people. For normal people listening to this programme who probably rent their home, who probably have a child.
What about the housing experts that have said that the increase in taxation on landlords from Wednesday's budget will lead to rents going up? Because if the costs of a landlord increase, they'll pass it on to tenants. It's not great for them, is it?
Well, look, there's only an extent to which you can do that because you are operating in a market. But what I would say when it comes to housing is the really important thing is just to build more of the stuff. And that, I think, is probably something we can all agree on. It's hard to do in this current market because they move very slowly and they only move when it's viable for them. But I'm pleased to see the OBR putting the government almost on target for a very ambitious target of 1.5
And I will
billion
grant
pounds.
you the egregious war on tenants and on landlords began under the Conservatives. It goes all the way back to George Osborne, of course, so I don't think Labour should be held exclusively responsible for that. What about the hike in minimum wage, which no doubt you'll welcome?
Yeah.
Not welcomed by the Resolution Foundation, Labour's favourite think tank, who said it will spike youth unemployment.
No, and look, I'm not an economist. I can't respond credibly to what the Resolution Foundation have to say, but at the end of the day, they are talking in economic terms. I'm talking in terms of fairness. If we want people to go to work, if we want people to be able to pay their rent, they have to be able to earn more, and that is one way to do it.
What if their wages are better, but they just don't have a job? So you've got a higher minimum wage, but more unemployment. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Well, those that are in work are going to be able to earn more. The problem is, and this is the reason...
Actually, if I was 18, I'd rather have a less paid job and a job than no job at all, I would say.
Well, it depends on the individual. I don't think that trade-off necessarily exists.
I'd rather work for Mackie D's on $7.99 an hour and have a job than have diddly squat.
Yeah, well, the reality is places like McDonald's are just going to replace workers with screens and stuff like that. This is the reality, is that they've made it more
very left-wing argument. You should join a union.
No, what I'm saying is that, yet again, that we've compounded a problem. So basically, you've made it more expensive to hire people. So what companies will do is look for other ways to cater to their needs.
They're going to do that anyway.
Yes, but again, you don't compound a problem, you try to fix a problem. So you invest in skills, you invest in schools, you invest in education, you do all these things to change a lot of the young people's prospects. What you don't do is take them out of the workforce, because people won't employ them.
They are investing in education.
The issue I think that you've got is that what will happen is, these are progressive policies which on paper are outstanding, and it would be hard for anyone with half a brain cell not to support a better minimum wage, more investment in public services, right? No one with half a brain thinks that's a bad idea. The problem is the political choices involved, and economic ones as well, and the consequences back end. So, for example, if you make life harder for employers, for example, with the workers' rights package, then more protections for workers, lovely on paper. What it means is that businesses will be reluctant to hire. So that's more unemployment. Unintended consequences. Similarly, the inflationary impact of minimum wage increases, which hurts the poorest. And looks like at the moment, Labour seem to be making the wrong choices.
But what's the alternative? You suppress wages and you suppress workers' rights. I don't think that's the Britain
I think you've got to do both of those things.
That's a really victorious
because our workers' rights are already world class.
Yes. We have one of the, by a significant way. Yes, by a significant way. Unless you're one of these people that think that, have the right to not be fired on your first day and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous, that workers' rights bill. Every major business leader
is important.
On the first day, you should have the same rights as somebody who's been there 20 odd years.
So where do you draw the line?
Well,
I think 24 months sounds about right.
I think about right. Yeah.
What
seems to me?
Which is what it was on that.
Which is what it was.
24 months.
Which is what it was.
I understand that, but why? We're starting with a blank slate here, and you've both said 24 months. Brilliant. Why?
Well, I would do anything that makes life easier for businesses, because the reason why I would love bomb business, I would actually give them massive tax cuts and I would axe the red tape. And the reason why is because they do something incredibly socialist. They do something amazingly left-wing, which is they enhance the lives of ordinary people, including at the bottom of the economic ladder, because they invest, they employ, and they generate national income which goes to schools, doctors, nurses, potholes, hospitals and defence. So that's why I love business, and business is basically the biggest sort of alternative to socialism you'll get out there, but with a socialist outcome, which is a happier, healthier and fairer society.
I think that's completely true. I have a lot of time for business as well. I run one, I've worked in one, I understand.
So you're probably a bit concerned about the mood music from this government regarding business.
No, not really. And look, I'm financially hit by this budget. I am worse off as a result, but I'm happy to do that.
You sack a few people?
Because so I don't employ, I'm self-employed, but I run a limited company, I draw dividends and all of that. But I see where that money is going, and I'm very happy for that to go to a breakfast club. I'm very happy for it to go to somebody who is on benefits, who can't work because they are ill, because they are disabled, because they are bereaved. I would much rather they had a slightly better quality of life, and I pay a little bit more tax as a result. That is the Britain I am proud to live in. I'm sure they will thank you as they're driving around in a brand new BMW with an emotional support cat.
It's a rather ridiculous situation to keep using these examples of people who are bereaved and all. Yes, there are legitimate reasons for people to be on benefits.
Do you agree
but
you
cannot change this country until you actually get a hold of the welfare bill and you actually start to say people, you're going to have to go to work. We can't pay for everybody not to work.
That's completely true, but I don't think that's what's happening. Would you agree that the majority of people who claim benefits need it?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, go on, expand on that.
Well, I don't. There's not really else to expand it. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's an overdiagnosis of mental health disorders. I think we are far too lax. We've got so many cases now of the system breaking down where people are signed off work by a phone call, not even an in-person thing. It is absolutely absurd.
So are you saying that 51% or more of the benefits claimants in this country are cheats?
No, I say, but the system is the problem.
But no,
so we need to change the system. I don't blame people for taking. I don't blame people for taking advantage of the system. What I do think is that no, the taking advantage of a system that is perfectly legal is perfectly fine. What I'm saying is that perpetuating the system, as the Labour Party have done.
Let me rephrase my question.
That is the problem.
Do you think that more than half of benefits claimants in this country shouldn't be claiming the benefits they are?
I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think there's a good argument to say that we could probably bring that down by a good 2/3. But in terms of they don't need it.
So you're just pulling benefits away from people?
Yes.
And then what do?
Well, then they do what we used to do without such a...
Then they can't feed their families. Then they end up on the streets.
Well, that's why we have the safety net. But yet again, you can't use a
streets.
Minority case to keep arguing for the majority,
well,
because that's not to the majority. That's not to the majority case. This is the problem.
That's a pretty radical view.
Let's imagine, given that we're in the red, if we were in a pandemic or at war with a foreign aggressor, would we be able as a nation to afford to bankroll the lives of someone with anxiety?
It depends on the case of anxiety, because
and you got Vladimir Putin dropping bombs on London, and we're still going to somehow find a budget for a guy called Steve who's had a stressful year.
So your argument is that when World War III strikes, we scrap the benefits bill?
I should cocoa.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and if you don't think that's the case, then you would be a remarkable danger in public office, because if you're in an emergency like that, then you obviously have to just defend your territory and make sure that you...
When I woke up this morning, I didn't think I'd be making economic policy for World War III, but here we are.
No, but what I mean is, and it's an exaggerated point, but actually we do need to run, but it's an exaggerated point, but it's just the idea that if there was an economic shock or something, you'd have to make tough choices. For example, if we were Greece, right, then what happened is our lenders would choose government policy, and the first thing they'd do is they would say to people with anxiety, I'm afraid you won't be getting any money anymore. And that wouldn't be cruel or heartless, it would be an administrative decision.
Yeah, well,
why aren't we doing that? Given we're in the red, well, given that we're in the red, I think we're in an emergency already.
We were in an emergency about 20 years ago. I mean, but I'm just interested. Do you think it was cruel then of Rachel Reeves to pull any benefits then?
To pull any benefits?
To kind of pull benefits? Because if you're saying that it's all these compassionate people, we should be really nice and all the rest of it, that pulling the benefits is therefore cruel.
No, I think the system needs reform, and I think that there are people who...
but I thought everybody was bereaved and all the rest of it.
A lot of people, most people who have benefits need benefits, and we need to support them because we owe them that. I think the system isn't working for people. It's hard for people to get into work at the moment. We probably need to go to a break, but my bottom line is that there's a lot of scope to reform the benefits system.
Listen, let me tell you that, some of you really don't agree with Sebastian, Phil and Keith, but this is what this channel's about, it's what this show's about. It's about a diversity of opinion, and Sebastian, represents the view of the 9-10 million people that voted, well, maybe not all of them now, but certainly a view of the chunk of the population who voted Labour and still support this government. So we're going to continue this conversation. This is Talk Breakfast, it's 8:50.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the Talk TV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:53, this is Talk Breakfast. And here's a question for you. Will David Lammy's leaked plans to scrap jury trials for all but the most significant crimes improve the criminal justice system? Sebastian Salek.
This is a really interesting one, isn't it? Especially because we're dealing with a plan that hasn't been announced. So we don't know where this is going to land. It could get scrapped entirely. It could get watered down. I come at this as a former law student, which means that from a very impressionable age, I had it banged into me the importance of jury trials. And therefore, I look at this with a lot of interest. And I see it as a very politically coded policy, which I think any political party could have come up with this, because it is pure pragmatism. We've got, 78,000 cases in the backlog, going to raise to 100,000 by the end of the decade if we don't do anything. Clearly something has to happen. What I'm really struck by is the numbers when you drill into it. 95% of criminal cases are solved in a magistrate's court, and that means that they never see a jury. So most criminal trials don't go to jury anyway. It's only the most serious, and a lot of those are going to be protected under this plan. So principally, yes, there are some parts of this where if you are legally minded, you might think, oh, I don't like the idea of that. But in reality, justice delayed is justice not done. And if you are a victim of a crime today, you're probably not going to have that heard for by the end of the decade even. So maybe there was a case to scrap the jury trials, speed things up and make sure that people's cases actually get heard, which currently they're not. Peter?
Some of the most high court senior judges in this country have said what you've just said is absolute claptrap, including one of the top criminal defence barristers as well. The fundamental reality is it won't speed it up. If anything, it slows it down. It takes judges out of their roles and puts them into a completely different position, which many of them don't even want to do. The reality of this, on a fundamental level, the idea of the government touching the right to a jury trial, a fundamental freedom, a fundamental basis of this country, without any mandate on that particular issue, is absolutely absurd. You do not solve a backlog by taking away people's rights. That is what this proposal was.
Is this
the
not,
idea that the Labour Party think that this was even a thing to touch is beyond.
But is this not a legacy of 14 years of Tory rule and their abject failure to invest in the criminal justice system?
Again, I don't get.
Aren't Labour fixing a Tory mess?
Well, the thing is, they're not going to fix the mess. What they're actually going to do is take our rights away. And that cannot stand without a democratic mandate. Things like this, I'm not a big fan of referendums, should go to a referendum. Or it has to be specific in a manifesto, because this is such a fundamental right that's been around for centuries. It is one of the greatest exports of this country, is that very principle. And this government and David Lammy thought we could take it away to speed up bureaucracy. That's an absurd position to take. But yet it doesn't surprise me, because you might say it's not politically coded. I think it kind of is. Because I think that we have an activist judiciary, and they are starting to see the political will to start changing the law, and the Labour Party and the left don't particularly like that very much, because yet again it is a facet of their power being removed. And I'm sorry, I just think it is absurd for any government to touch that right in the way that they even proposed to do. I mean, one of the major advisors to David Lammy came out and said, this is a terrible plan, basically. When their own senior advisor comes out and says no, there is a big problem there.
I mean, look, this is a massive case of debate within the legal community, and rightly so, because it's really important. It's Sunday morning, let's activate our brains, let's do a little thought experiment. Why are we not then introducing jury trials if they're so important for magistrates' cases?
I don't know. I think we should. That's a good question, but I think what you do is you take away certain cases away from magistrates, and you have. But what you actually do is you streamline the process within the court system itself. You take away a lot of the bureaucracy and you speed up the courts. What you do is you don't take away people's rights, because yes, you might say some people's.
But if you're in a magistrate's
just 1 second.
court,
Well, obviously, magistrates' courts tackle the less serious crimes, don't they?
Yeah.
And what you're looking at in with a jury trial is a crime that could lead to, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 years in prison. Well, those will go to a judge now rather than the public.
No, it's only those that are 5+. Oh no, so no, you are right. You are right. Yeah.
So how do you explain to somebody who's been maybe a possible sentence of 4 years that they don't get the right to a trial, but somebody with 5 does?
But if it's a universal,
what's the cutoff, and what's the justification for that? Because it can't be, we've just got to speed up the backlog.
Well, much like the age of consent and many other numbers, these numbers are arbitrary and open to debate as well, and very, very sensibly so. My question would be, why are those who are seen by a magistrate denied the right to a jury trial?
Well, again, it depends on the seriousness of the crime.
Yeah.
So again,
but that's the vast majority of criminal cases that are heard in this country.
Yes, because we're very fortunate that we don't have such a high murder rate.
What it means is that more serious crimes will not have a jury deciding the verdict.
That's true, but it's that middle section, isn't it, as you say, between 3 and 5. Anything 5+, which is the really serious stuff, it's rape, it's murder, it's manslaughter, are going still to be heard by a jury, which I think is incredibly important.
Well, I think if you stab someone and injure them and give them life-changing injuries, there's every chance that you'll be convicted without a jury trial, and that's surely unsustainable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a valid argument, and again, it comes back to the idea that this policy is leaked, so we don't know where it's going to land.
What about David Lammy? Because he said that the jury trials were critical to our democracy in 2020, but what he hasn't done is denied the content of this leak.
No, he hasn't. And look, I would agree with him that jury trials are critical. He's a barrister, Keir Starmer is a barrister. These are legal brains who are so at the core level supportive of this kind of thing. I think it speaks to their pragmatism that they're willing to go here.
People. Ask Lucy Connolly what she thinks of the legal system.
Oh, we can get into that one. Top tip for Lucy, don't plead guilty if you don't want to go to prison.
Lads, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you come in early on a Sunday morning and debate these things, because what we need to do in this country is debate everything, right? There's an absolute pile of people that agree with Sebastian, a pile of people that agree with Peter, and what we'll do is we'll have the battle of ideas. We'll do it again in a week's time, lads. Please come back soon. 8:59, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. Should Starmer go, given he knew about the non-existent black hole? That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.903. Big Rachel's in trouble, folks. 24/7 resignation watch. You heard it here first. Happy Sunday, one and all. This is Talk Breakfast. And breaking this morning, it's been revealed that Sir Keir Starmer knew about Chancellor Rachel Reeves' pre-budget lies and signed off on the messaging around a non-existent £30 billion black hole. Well, Rachel Reeves now is on resignation watch. She's feeling the political heat. But if she goes, will she take Starmer down with her? Meanwhile, Labour's biggest donor turns on Rachel Reeves, saying that Wednesday's budget hit ordinary workers the most. We'll bring you coverage of this growing political crisis, which threatens to engulf Starmer's administration. And my question to you this morning, given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole and Rachel Reeves' doomsday messaging, particularly in regard to that early November emergency early morning press conference, should the Prime Minister now resign? Was it political spin? Was it politicians being politicians? Or do you feel lied to? My number is 03444991000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can leave me one of your excellent voice notes. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. As the saying goes, let's talk. And who better to do that with than in the company of the political commentator, journalist and ex-editor of the Sunday Express, David Wooding. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark.
Rachel Reeves is in trouble, isn't she?
Yes, I mean, this budget, it was going on for ages before we even heard the speech, and it's going to continue for days and days and weeks after this. The pressure is on Rachel Reeves big time over whether she misled us. We now know that when she was talking on November the 4th about a 30 billion black hole and how she needed to put taxes up in order to fill that 4 or 5 days earlier, the Office for Budget Responsibility have told them there was no black hole. In fact, there was a surplus of about £4 billion.
Did she actually, from memory, did she quote 30 billion as a black hole at that hastily arranged morning press conference?
No, not specifically.
She implied it.
She'd been saying for weeks that there was a 30 billion
part
black
of
hole.
her part of the narrative.
Yeah, and then she said she gave the distinct impression that taxes were going to have to go up, that she was going to have to break the election manifesto promise not to put taxes up, and her officials were briefing journalists afterwards that it's all to do with the black hole left by the Conservatives.
Yes, so that liability, that alleged £30 billion black hole, was priced into Reeves's calculations and her public narrative in the run-up to the budget when she was in possession of facts that contradicted that. Where does spin stop and lying start, do you think?
Well, we've had this for many, many years. It's called rolling the pitch in Westminster. What politicians do is, ahead of a vicious, nasty announcement, they start preparing us for the worst. A bit like when a doctor's going to tell you that you've got a fatal illness. He prepares you for the bad news. And Tony Blair was great at it. They'd tell you all sorts of things leading up to it, and then when the bad news was actually announced, you didn't feel quite so bad about it. And then some people go even further than that, and what they do is they exaggerate the level, and then when it comes, oh well, it wasn't quite as bad as what they said. But what has clearly happened here is that we've been told there's a real massive black hole in the economy when there wasn't. And there was no need to put taxes up. In fact, the Office for Budget Responsibility were telling the Chancellor, you do not need to do this. You've got more headroom than you imagined. And yet she still went ahead and did it. So the question is, did she do this, one, to appease the left-wing backbenchers who wanted a big welfare splurge, an extra £70 billion spent on welfare, giving it to people by reducing the two-child benefit cap and increasing the levels of welfare? for people who are out of work? Or secondly, did she do it in order to give herself a war chest so that 3 years down the road she can give us an election giveaway sweeteners before we go to the polls? Question is, will they make it now to 3 years from here?
You have to wonder, don't you? And it's very interesting to look at the run up to the budget. And as you mentioned, that figure, that very crystal clear figure of 30 billion of a black hole was quoted before the hastily assembled November press conference. That narrative of doom was perpetuated at the conference, which was early in the morning. It was like an emergency, unprecedented statement, which annoyed the journalists because they hadn't had their tea and bacon sarnies yet. And it seems to have been politically motivated. What could the consequences be? Because the story's not going away, is it?
No, well, I mean, the obvious one is that she might have to fall on her sword. The problem for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is that they are joined at the hip. They were a dream typical at the election. They were side by side, shoulder to shoulder throughout that election. And he has come out this morning, or his people have, and said that he knew everything that Rachel Reeves had said. So he is now tarred with the same brush, effectively. So if she goes, he goes. So I would think he's going to have to support her. The problem he's got is that in May you've got the local and devolved assembly elections, and that's going to be a bloodbath for him. There's some other figures, Mark, I must tell you as well. This is one that seems to have escaped people. During the pandemic, if you remember, there was a massive spending to try and keep people in jobs. You know, £1.1 trillion we went into debt. This was to keep 9 million people on furlough. The amount that this government is going to go into debt over this Parliament is bigger than that, 10% higher, 1.5 trillion. And there is no need to do this. It's all being done to finance welfare spending and give her some kind of extra money, extra headroom that she didn't really need.
Yes, there is no emergency, the extent to which is proved by the fact that she's talking about Brexit, which happened years ago.
Well, Brexit and the Conservatives. I mean, that's all running.
Donald Trump's tariffs.
It's all running a bit dry now. This, we can't keep doing this. We've been in power for 18 months, haven't we?
And Rachel Reeves will be, she's on the morning round of interviews on Breakfast TV, and she's got some serious work to do to rescue this situation, hasn't she?
Yeah, well, I shall be looking at the catch up on that later. Yeah, but yes, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for her. Yes.
And this is before we get to the rather negative response to the budget from many aspects of the groups in the country, of course, the business world. And what about this front page of your former paper that you edited, Sunday Express, David? Families need wages of 71 grand to beat those on benefits. Families with 3 children have to earn £71,000 to bring in as much money as a similar household living entirely on benefits. Jobless families on handouts are also £18,000 better off than neighbours on the national living wage. This doesn't sound like a set of policies that would come from a Labour government, but you've got folk on 35 grand a year who are going to pay an extra 1,500 in tax as a result of this Labour budget.
Yeah, this is analysis by the Centre for Social Justice, and it shows that the suggestion that Labour was not going to hurt working people, or indeed that it is the party of working people, is a complete sham, because working people are being betrayed completely here. It's become the party of shirkers, not workers.
Most definitely. And we've even got, haven't we, the leader of Unite, the union, saying that the decision to freeze tax thresholds is underhand and a war on working people. So there are even concerns, within Labour ranks about this budget.
Yes, and people, some of the more senior backbenchers are apoplectic about it privately. But they're just seeing that the vote that they have from the working people is just more and more moving over to reform.
What strikes me as odd, David, is it's against the interests of this government to have a budget which is going to destroy growth, because they need national income in order to invest in public services, in order to have their programme of government. So it's completely politically inept, what we've seen and how this has played out, but it's economically wrong-headed too. They need growth, something that was understood by Tony Blair all those years ago.
Yeah, well, that's another one that's proved to sham. They said growth was their number one priority. Not putting up taxes for working people was a priority. And
they've done the opposite, right?
Done completely opposite.
They've shrunk the economy and they've grown the tax take.
They've given up all pretense of being a party of growth now, because all the actions that have come about will show that there will be no growth. If the money is all going on welfare, this extra money being spent on that, all the people who are going out working will feel completely aggrieved by this.
I'm delighted to say that David Wooding, the former editor of the Sunday Express, is with me in the studios. And David is taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. Derek is in Manchester. Good morning, Derek.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thanks for calling. What are your thoughts? Should Starmer go alongside Reeves?
Well, absolutely. But then again, the whole government should go. They keep talking. They started talking when they first come in about a black hole. Now, a black hole to me suggests that a load of money's been lost or disappeared, either criminally. So what are they doing? Are they accusing the Tories of stealing the original 20 million that they said?
Yeah.
Are they then accusing themselves of stealing the extra 30 million? I mean, it's a joke. If that's the case and there was genuinely a black hole, surely there should have been a massive investigation and someone should have been held accountable. Because if I had a business and I went to my accountant at the end of the year and he said, oh, hang on, you've got a black hole of 20 grand, I'd want to know where that money had gone.
And I think, Derek, you raise a good point. Stay with us. David Wooding, the issue you got with Derek's remarks is you've got a public now that don't believe a word this government say.
No, absolutely. And Derek, you make a good point about the debt. I remember saying back in 2020 when Rishi Sunak, who was then the Chancellor in the Tory government, bringing in the furlough scheme and we had lockdown and he was subsidising business to keep it all alive. And I remember saying, the problem for the Conservatives now is that in 5 years' time, when there's a general election, people will forget about the pandemic because all have gone, and all they'll see is the debt and the higher taxes as the bill for what he is now doing arrives. Now, that bill arrived, and duly, yes, the taxes went up to a post-war high, and the Tories were kicked out of office, as I predicted. The problem now is that a lot of that is gone. And all this debt that we're now accumulating is of Labour's own making, and they can't keep blaming the Conservatives for it.
David?
What we're also missing out on here, though, any employee, which the government are an employee of myself and the rest of the public, any employee can be held accountable and sacked when they make a hash of it. Now, this lot have come in, fair enough, they won an election, but they won an election on a pack of lies. In other words, they give us a false CV.
Yes,
if that's the case, surely we should have the right, or we should be able to have the right to sack them. You would in any other industry. You'd be held accountable in any other industry. The mess you made, you'd be put through court if you destroyed someone's business like this. You'd be sued. You'd lose your house, your home, everything you'd ever earned if you made a mess of someone's business like this. So why on earth can't politicians be held to the same account? It's an absolute disgrace.
Definitely, Derek. Brilliant call. Will you call me again soon? Derek raises a good point. If you did this in the corporate environment, if you did it in the company, you'd be in trouble. What about if you did that with the tax man? With, for example, a payment on account where you basically said, oh, no, I've basically earned diddly squat. Turns out you've made thousands. You'd have your collar felt, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Well, of course, the Conservatives, Sir Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, has this morning written to the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, asking them to investigate what the Chancellor has done. And interestingly enough, one of my old colleagues in the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges, writes that, they shouldn't really be talking about whether she is fired or not. In fact, she'd be lucky if the only punishment she gets is the loss of a job. He says she should face criminal charges because the effect it has on the market.
Well, indeed, she didn't just mislead voters and the House of Commons, the chamber of the House of Commons. She misled those who keep the lights on, right? The international bond markets upon whose largesse we are reliant. Marie is in East Sussex. Good morning, Marie. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How are things? I can imagine East Sussex is gorgeous this morning. The sun has made an appearance?
It's very sunny, and we're just off to the march in Crowborough because we live just up the road.
Oh, now that's very important because this is an East Sussex town which is bracing itself for 600 migrants to be accommodated at an army training camp, and you're saying no.
Yeah, most of us are saying no.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got a few that are welcoming, but yeah, so we're going off on the march in about 10 minutes. But the reason I rang was I just wanted to pick up on the guy, I don't know what his name was.
Sebastian Salek, my Labour councillor.
Yeah, so when he was talking about the statistics of abuse in the benefit system, and he said it was 2.2%, and I think that's absolute rubbish. I know it's anecdotal, but I know lots and lots of instances. One of my friends lives in social housing. She lived next door to a guy who decided to move out of his social housing flat, went to live in Thailand, used the place as a storage. His son lived there sometimes, and of course the taxpayer was paying his rent. And it took the local council 3 years to start to investigate him, and that's despite numerous calls from residents telling them what was happening, and it took them 3 years. Now, that's happening all over the country. 2.2%, I think, is total rubbish. It's far higher than that. Far higher.
Marie, you are so right to call that out. No one is buying that figure of 2.2%. It's rife. No. And here's the shocking thing, briefly, Marie. Even those who are legitimately on benefits, many shouldn't be, because we're in the black, right? You know, with your household budget, you can't live beyond your means. And yet we're paying healthy, able-bodied people to stay at home. You've got this statistic in the Sunday Express, David's former paper, Marie. Families need wages of 71 grand to be an equivalent family on benefits.
Unbelievable. The country's broken. You know, it's an ideology. It's this liberal... I mean, I scream at the radio all day, but
yeah, you know, liberal, woke rubbish. And I know what what you want to say is not broadcastable, Marie.
No, but you know, I'm 70, and I've worked since I was 15, and I started my first job 2 weeks after my 15th birthday, and I've had 2 children, but I've worked more or less all the way through that, on the books, paid my taxes, and I'm still working in the NHS. Because we need to pay our bills. We've got high energy bills. Everything costs a fortune. And I need to keep working. And that's wrong. And that's what they don't understand.
You shouldn't have to work at the age of 70 in a rich Western economy like ours.
No, I probably shouldn't. It probably keeps me going, but that's not the point.
No.
That's my
It should be a personal choice, not financial necessity.
Absolutely. But, you know, and it's the unfairness. They don't understand that people look at what's happening, and it's the people in the middle that suffer. Not the people on benefits, not the rich. It's the people in the middle, you know, who just get by. They earn a little bit too much to get benefits, and they struggle. And they look at all of these people who sit at home all day, or, you know, illegal immigrants coming in, sitting in, you know, hotels in their nice warm room, 3 meals a day. It's not fair.
It isn't fair.
Just not fair.
Marie, more power to you on that march today. And I hope you get the result you need, which is not to destroy a town with the arrival of 600 undocumented, mostly men, on an army training camp, massively impacting the local community. Thank you, Marie. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. The former editor of the Daily Express, David Wooding, one of the absolute legends of Fleet Street, is with us in the studio. He's taking your calls. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer, it's been revealed by The Telegraph, knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole. Should he go with Rachel Reeves? This is Kim.
Morning, Mark. Maybe this is a question for one of your experts, but isn't the current budget fraud? Receiving money by deception? I mean, makes sense to me.
I think you've put that well. I can't disagree with you, Kim. This is Daniel on Reeves.
Hello, Mark. It's Daniel from Lingfield here. Just going back a few months, we had a crying Reeves on the bench, didn't we? Could that be linked, do you think, to the lie she's been telling that she was maybe forced to tell? Be interested if your researchers could go back in time and work out the date line.
That's a brilliant point. Both very, very excellent probing questions. We need to talk about benefits now as well, because according to the Sunday Express, David's former paper, families need wages of 71 grand to beat benefits claimants of an equivalent sized family. This is a voice note from Kev on that very subject.
Morning, Mark. What a lovely positive start to the day, hearing that I need to earn 71 grand to be the same as someone on benefits with about 3 kids. Even if I pushed anywhere near that with my wages, I'd just get higher tax, wouldn't I? Of course, because that's how this progressive socialist government works. I'm only leaving a voice clip today because I'm at work. But it's quite scary, quite depressing. And the thing that you've also got to consider, I've got a son, not with his mum. I've got to care for my son. I can't just leave this country like other people do because I've got a son. And another thing you got to consider is people pay mortgages. I pay a mortgage. I can't do that on benefits. And it'll be paid off in 3 years. And what country are we going to live in 3 years from now? Is it going to be worth anything?
Kev, I understand your anger and my heart goes out to you with your situation and your son and your mortgage and your job. It's a scandal. It's a national scandal. Scary and depressing is how you've described it, Kev. And I wish I could buy you a beer and just, you know, be a shoulder to cry on. You speak for millions of people. You don't see yourself as a victim, of course you don't, but you are being punished by this administration, who seem, David Wooding, to be on the side of those who don't work. Now, let's be clear, and it's critically important, that there are many people on benefits who need benefits, okay? There's bipolar disorder, joint problems, chronic back pain, fibromyalgia, disabilities. That's why we pay our taxes. That's not who David resents paying his taxes for, is it?
Absolutely not. We don't... It's... Benefit system is there as a safety net. It's there for people who, through no fault of their own, lose their job and have to have some money for a while until they find more employment. Or it's for people who have got a debilitating illness and are unable to work. But it's ceased to become a safety net now and has become a lifestyle choice for many people. And again, I'm not saying all of them. Some of them are making it a lifestyle choice. And we also have the rising, while the thresholds for paying tax have been frozen, the thresholds for receiving benefits have risen. You can now have mild anxiety and can be taking benefits because you find yourself unable to work. These people just need a bit of a helping hand to go to work. So there's a lot of people on benefits now for problems which shouldn't really prevent you from having a job. And as the CSJ, the Centre for Social Justice report reveals, the balance has been tilted heavily in favour of those on benefits, and in fact is encouraging people to go on benefits, because somebody who has 3 children on benefits will get £46,000 by 2036, 2037, and somebody on earning the same amount would get £28,000 take home, and that would involve one of them working full-time and one working part-time. So where's the fairness in that?
Well, indeed. Another controversial proposed policy is David Lammy's efforts, allegedly, at least through a leak that he hasn't denied, to scrap jury trials. Let's take a listen to Sandra on a voice note. Let's listen to Sandra on a voice note on David Lammy and jury trials.
Absolutely agree with Peter about Lammy's proposals regarding juries. What this potentially could mean is that people put on trial for social media posts, etc., will be denied the right to be judged by their peers. It's completely egregious.
Unfortunately, David Wooding, this has not had the attention it deserves because of the politics and economics around the budget this week, but it's a huge story.
It is indeed. I mean, the right to a trial by jury has been one of the cornerstones of not only our legal system, but of our democracy since Henry II brought it in the 12th century, 900 years ago. And we all know that we can be put on trial and tried by our own peers, 12 men and women plucked from obscurity, put into a jury, then vanish back into obscurity afterwards. We don't know who they are, who sit and use common sense. What they now want to do is for 90% of cases hand them over to judges to make the decision. So there'll be judge, jury and sentencer. And the judge, of course, the idea is to speed up. David Lammy wants to speed up justice because there's been a bit of a backlog. I think there's 78,000 cases which haven't been heard. But that's all down to inefficiency in the Centre for in the Crown Prosecution Service, where incidentally Keir Starmer was once the chief, and as a result, judges will be making these decisions. Now, do we trust judges to make a fair decision, or do we prefer to be judged by our peers who use common sense? Look at the great judgments judges have made on the asylum and migration panels. I mean, imagine if they're now going to, these liberal-minded, woke, intellectual people who don't know what ordinary life is like, make these judgments on us.
That's right. The judges that will say that you don't have to be returned to your country of origin because you don't like chicken McNuggets.
Exactly. They're the sort of people who will be making the decisions on whether somebody is guilty or not. There's a very good piece by one of the columnists in the Mail on Sunday today, who's saying that she sat on a jury where the prosecution made their case, the defence did their case and cross-examined the defendants. The judge asked questions, but it was only because the jury raised 6 or 7 questions repeatedly by sending messages to the judges that they got to the truth of what had happened, and the man was cleared. So they were using common sense and asking questions that ordinary people think about, which these highfalutin legal minds don't.
Most definitely. Andy in Liverpool, black hole, £30 billion fraud and deception in my eyes. If I'd done that, I'd be nicked for theft. There's a prevailing theme, whether it's the impacts of the budget measures or whether it's this political row over what Rachel Reeves did and didn't know in the run-up to the budget. The public are feeling ignored, the public are made fools of, and they feel that this governing administration runs by a set of rules that the rest of us don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to go on for some time now. I think that the only black hole now is the one that Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister themselves are in, and they keep digging themselves deeper into that black hole.
Listen, I cannot wait to read the Sun newspaper this weekend because I know you'll be writing for that iconic paper. You are, of course, the former editor of the Sunday Express as well. And David, I hope you'll come back and see us again soon.
Absolutely. Been a pleasure.
Fascinating stuff. There you go. David, as I say, is in the building to write for the Sun, and it'll be worth reading. Don't forget, the Sun is #1 for politics scoops. So much more to come. Should Starmer resign, given that he knew about the non-existent £30 billion black hole? I've got a radio legend coming in the studio and your calls. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Alex Phillips is up. She's in for Peter Cardwell. She's live at 10. Looking forward to that. Jay in Brighton. Good morning, Mark. Isn't it the job of the Shadow Chancellor to monitor what's happening with the Office of Rachel Thieves? Why did he not notice it or subsequently investigate these Labour lies? The public, Alex Dyke, former BBC radio legend, are furious about what they see as lies and misinformation from the Chancellor. Is her position still tenable?
Well, it's a difficult one, Mark, isn't it? Good morning, by the way. It's a difficult one because if she goes, the Prime Minister will have to go, because that's always what happens in this situation. Their relationship is so close. But all we heard about for months and months and months was this black hole. That was their big pitch to us, that the Tories have left us this massive black hole. And apparently now there isn't one.
Well, that's right. We had the original Tory black hole, then a year goes by, and now we've got the Labour black hole, and then even that didn't exist. No. I think sums it up very well. Let's have a listen to Karen on this. It's a voice note.
Hello, it's Karen from Swaddling Cove. Strange question. Has Angela Rayner paid back that money to the tax office yet? Because everybody seems to be hammered, not her. Just a strange question. And yes, for Starmer, Reeves and the clowns of the Labour Party need to go.
It's my understanding, Karen, she has not paid that stamp duty yet. And amazingly, in this clown world, she's a candidate potentially to replace Keir Starmer as the Prime Minister of this country. Could she be the first Prime Minister to have evaded a tax whilst in high office? And on benefits, this is Elle. Take a listen.
I was a single parent from when my girls were 10 and 12. My eldest one's got ADHD. So you can imagine the nightmare. She got expelled from 6 schools. I still was up at the crack of dawn. I still took them to school separately because the older one used to cause so much mayhem. It ruined the other one's day at school. So I'd do 2 school trips to get them to school. They were fed before they went and they were fed properly in the evenings. And then I used to put the leftovers in little Tupperware containers so they had food at school. I'd then go off and do my 40 hours a week and earn my money. I didn't claim any benefits. So why now, when I've literally lived a life of poverty and misery, having to do all this, and everybody's saying, oh, I'm going to get an extra 3,000 for this child and free breakfast clubs. No, just get on with it.
Just get on with it. A very sensible message, Elle, which is not echoed by our government. Alex Dyke, ex-BBC radio legend. Families need wages of 71 grand to beat benefits. And now jobless families on handouts are 18 grand better off than neighbours who are working on the national living wage.
Yeah. Now, this story, Mark, reminded me, I heard this on your show as I drove up from the south this morning, and it's a big story, and it reminded me of back in the day when we used to do radio phone-ins. We would traditionally talk about bad drivers and scruffy public places, the state of our roads. Littering, parking problems, obesity, and we would talk often about people on benefits. This story, the media would talk about it, they would shake Britain up, and maybe then, because the media was talking about it, politicians might do something about it. I think the big question here, after seeing this story and it getting so much of the front page of the Express, is we can't do this anymore. There's no room in the media, there's no room on the news, because we have to keep talking about the 2 big problems in Britain, which are this woke culture that we have to live in and immigration. But they're clogging all of the airspace, and I'm so glad that this is on the front page of the Express today, because you imagine if you're, I don't know, if you're a delivery driver, and I'm just generalising here, dad's a delivery driver, mum's a school cleaner, you're working really, really, really hard, and then you are surrounded by neighbours on benefits who are doing absolutely nothing. They're watching daytime TV all day while you are out working. This sends out such a wrong message to Britain.
Well, I totally agree with you. If we didn't have illegal immigration, which we didn't have in the 70s and 80s, we'd be talking about the stuff that really affects our viewers and listeners, which is potholes and waiting lists and, you know, crime and the fact that your neighbour makes more than you do, even though they work and you don't. And that's what we need to get back to, is the concerns of ordinary Brits. It's amazing that the government can't even do the basics, which is police our borders, which, as you say, clogs up the national conversation around really pressing matters. Phil is in Preston. Good morning, Phil.
Yeah, good morning.
Now, Phil, you've got a rather interesting question to pose about the budget. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, if Reeves and Starmer get redundant as such...
Yep, if they get their P45 and chucked out, which we can only dream of...
I'm just wondering about the budget. Would it be null and void?
It's a really, really good point, Phil. I mean, it's because that budget was an act of fraud, wasn't it?
Well, it's not been passed through the Commons yet, has it?
No, the budget statement is a statement, and you just wonder. It's sort of built on a tissue of lies, Alex Dyke. Stay with us, Phil. What do you think about that, Alex?
Yeah, this is all such a mess. Labour are in such a mess, and we are in such a mess because of this government. And to think that Keir Starmer knew all about this latest black hole and they just went ahead is unforgivable. I wonder when Labour are going to make such a big mistake that the British people are going to say, whoa, enough is enough now.
Most definitely. Have you had enough, Phil?
Well, what else is there to say? Everything's been said, really.
Well, indeed. Do you work, Phil?
No, I'm retired. I'm 82-year-old.
And Phil, did you take benefits in your life?
I've never had a benefit in my life. I left school at 15, like the other lady said earlier. And I've worked till I was 65, and then I got my pension.
And what do you make of that headline, Phil, on the front page of the Sunday Express today, that families would need wages of 71 grand to beat benefits neighbours who are on similar money, if not more, who don't work at all?
Yeah, but if some of these benefit claimants are on so much money, I'm sure they should be taxed. If somebody working run the same money, they get taxed.
And what's happened, Phil, is that my viewers and listeners who work have been taxed, whereas those who don't work have had a pay rise.
Well, nothing to say about that, really.
Isn't it, Phil? You've lived a life. What are your thoughts about the future of this country? Have you got kids? Are you concerned about their future?
No, I've got two children, and they're both doing well. They're both in work, and they're both in the 50s, so they're doing okay.
Well, yeah, they're obviously a chip off the old block. But there you go, Phil. I'm so glad you called, and thank you for posing that excellent question. If Rachel Reeves resigns, should the budget be cancelled? When the Chancellor delivers a budget, Parliament does not automatically pass it. Immediately after the budget statement, MPs agree a provisional collection of taxes motion. This gives temporary legal cover for some tax changes to start on budget day. But then you've got a multi-day debate. So, Phil, what I'm saying to you is, it's not been passed. It's not statute yet. Should it be cancelled? I think so, because, Alex Dyke, it was done on a false premise.
Absolutely, Mark. And a friend of mine said to me on Friday night, now this person is doing okay, but they're not rich. And they said to me, I drive an electric car and my house is on paper worth over £2 million. But I inherited that house and I'm not rich. I'm doing okay and I'm not complaining and I'm working. I've worked hard all my life. But how can this be okay?
And if you're in a big house and you can't afford that tax bill, you'll have to sell it.
Yeah.
And therefore what that effectively means is the state has taken your house off you.
Yes, and he's got 3 children, grown-up children, who are living at home with him because they can't afford to get on the housing ladder.
And he won't get $2 million for that house because there'll now be an unspoken threshold. People won't want to pay over $2 million for a property, which means that when he would have got 2.1, 2.2, he'll get 1.9 now because of this cut-off, which will affect the housing market.
This is exactly the last thing that the housing market and estate agents need, because this just knocks confidence in the market, and then hey, you're in recession.
And exactly, why does the housing market matter? Well, even if you're not on a housing ladder, the health of the housing market directly relates to economic activity. That's why it matters. And I would say that even if I was a renter, instead I'm a heavily mortgaged, I'm a tenant of the bank, I can't lie. And they expect their money every single month, don't they? And if I lied to my bank about my financial situation, I would lose my mortgage and I'd get done for fraud, mortgage fraud. But you've got Rachel Reeves, who's quite happy to lie to the public about the nation's finances. She walks away scot-free. Penny is in Northamptonshire. Hi, Penny.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for taking my call.
Delighted to have you. How's your Sunday morning going?
Oh, very well.
What are you up to?
The ironing's nearly finished.
Oh, good, good, good. And what have you been ironing? Is it just the clothes, sheets? What are you doing?
Clothes.
Yeah.
Hubby's best shirt.
And is it a kind of Sunday tradition to get on top of the ironing?
No, it's just that we had other stuff planned for early week and I had to get it out the way.
There you go. Well, look, I'll tell you what, I bet they're beautifully pressed. Penny, what do you think about what's going on at the moment?
Well, like a lot of the people I know, we're totally bereft at this government. And it was making me sleepless sometimes. And I woke up one morning with the song by the Animals, The House of the Rising Sun, on my head.
Yeah.
And straight away, I thought about two-tier. So I've got 7 verses that I'll do very quickly.
Oh, go for it.
You've got to imagine that it's the House of the Rising Sun tune.
Yes.
Right, there is a house in Downing Street. I call it Two Tiers Pad. And he's been the ruin of many poor folk, the worst PM I've ever had. His father was a tool maker, didn't you know? Made a right one with Kia. And his mother sat asking her hubby, Rod, what have we produced here? Now, the only thing this PM needs is posh free suits and specs. And while he admires himself in the mirror, he just don't care whose lies he wrecks. He says he's going to smash the gangs, but he hasn't done anything yet. It appears to me what he'd rather do is swan off around the world on a jet. And he says we have free speech. But I feel I've got to shut my gob. Because if I said what I was thinking, I'd be labelled a far-right yob. Well, he's got one foot on the world stage, the other's up his own rear. But concerns of ordinary British, I'm afraid he just don't want to hear. So, Starmer, tell your children not to do what you have done. Go live your life around sin and misery in the borough of Islington.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is 9:49. Thanks to my amazing team. Phil Dave is a double threat, folks. He's a top executive producer and he's also pressing the buttons today. I mean, the union won't be happy about that. Also, Chris is directing our television output alongside Davis. If you want to watch the show, just head to Talk and head to YouTube and search Talk. And taking your calls has been Tommy. We've had a full switchboard all morning. And can I just big up? You're gonna have to look up the name of that lovely lady that just did the amazing. Penny in Northamptonshire. So there's a lot of love for Penny. The most amazing lyrics that she rewrote, House of the Rising Sun. And Colin says, spot on, that poem should go into print ASAP. Penny, you're getting a round of applause for being a legend and a star. Can I say you're a very talented lyricist? Those words, as an expert in music radio, Alex, can you give Penny the thumbs up, the 5-star?
I say, Penny,
verdict.
get a backing track to that. It could be the new Christmas #1.
Oh my God!
Second year in a row, a song about Keir Starmer as the Christmas #1. What about that?
Yeah, it was brilliant, wasn't it? Beautifully written. Penny, you're a star, and we loved it. And Phil and I decided that you can't follow that, so we hit the ad break straight off the back of it. But Penny, thank you for that. In fact, we welcome more of your poetry anytime soon. Mark says, Linda, Rachel Reeves finished her budget statement saying, "These are my decisions, my choices." It shows the level of her intelligence. In making that statement, it all becomes her fault. It allows for her and her alone to fall on her sword. Starmer survives. Linda, you're so right. And also, it's a lie, because it's our understanding that Number 10 have taken over the running of the economy and that Rachel is something of a puppet. Kenny says, good morning, Mark. Love the show. This government is little more than a pack of liars. Fake solicitors, dishonest CVs, tax cheats, fraudsters, grifters, and the two in Downing Street, compulsive, unmitigated liars. We need a general election now. That is Kenny. Thank you so much for that. Right, Big Al, what have you got for us? What else?
Right, the last time I was in, we were talking in the break, and I don't think we were using rose-tinted glasses, Mark, but we were talking about how life once was. So I went to make some notes about what we were talking about off air. So let me remind you. So if you feel that you live in a Britain that doesn't feel like home, let me take you back to 1990 when Keeping Up Appearances was big on BBC One and Elton John was singing Sacrifice and it was #1 in the charts. We're going to go back to 1990 because 1990 is the future that we dream of now, but we've already lived it. Yeah. So what you had in 1990, and I was being a little bit sarcastic about the rose-tinted glasses, but you had a GP, a family doctor, probably not a locum, a family doctor that you could see within 24 to 48 hours, okay? You're not wrestling with some NHS app and trying to stay online to get an appointment in 2 or 3 weeks' time. That, I think you'll agree, is really big.
And in most cases, you'd see the GP on the day.
Yeah, in most cases, but you might have to wait 48 hours. And it would be a family doctor who would know you and your siblings or whatever relations you had. We had bobbies on the beat who have almost gone. We had affordable homes where a young couple could get a mortgage with one working wage. I mean, this all sounds like lottery wins for us now.
Yes, school teachers and maybe a nurse, they could all get on the housing ladder, right? I want to keep this vibe going. Bridget's in Suffolk. Bridget, do you remember 1990? And was that a better time than what we're living through now?
I think so. I think people were proud to work, but now it seems, people just want to sit at home. I was born in the 50s, 1956. When they built cars then, they built humans to last as long as the cars do, but now they don't work, They want everything for nothing, and I can't even get I've moved to Suffolk, so I can't get a dentist. Yet I've put in since I was 15, and I can't get a dentist.
And Alex is saying that the society that we dream of, that we're working towards, is one we had in 1990.
Well, I just think he's encouraging people to be lazy. I heard that you know, what the benefits they get with all the housing and the council tax not paid. 71,000. I'm 70 years old next year in June, and I'm still working, but I'm proud because I hope that I can show my grandchildren this is how it should be done and not sitting on your backsides.
Bridget, you're a model to all of us, and you're an example of a country that we're losing at a rate of knots because, unfortunately, millions do not have your attitude, your work ethic, your sense of responsibility. You are a credit to the country, Bridget, and a credit to this show. Thank you for your call. Almost 70. I hope you're having a big party next June. And there you go. We don't have 1990 anymore. What else was going on at the beginning of that decade?
Right, OK, so it wasn't utopia. We did have a threat from the IRA, but it was contained. But we had no knife crime. It was. I can't even find any stats for 1990 because there wasn't enough.
People used to just punch each other in the pub after too many pints, didn't they? That was about as bad as it got.
Like an episode of Coronation Street and the Rovers Return or EastEnders, and the police were often not automatically called. There were no notices in NHS hospitals saying please do not attack or abuse our staff because people didn't do it because we didn't have so many problems with drugs. There was no patients waiting in hallways on trolleys. So these are big things that we would like now. Quickly, Mark, I'll go through a few because I know time is tight. 2,000 libraries have closed since 2010. Wow. Hundreds of public pools and leisure centres. Now, if you go to a leisure centre, it's like it costs the same as belonging to an exclusive club.
Correct.
Youth clubs have gone, high streets have been hollowed out, and children don't play outside like they used to. These are big things, and I encourage anyone to go down their old high street the next time they can and stand there, look around at those closed shop fronts and think, that used to be the wool shop. That's where the local electrician had
Bob the butcher.
Bob the butcher, the leather shop, the local pet shop. It's going, and we've got to do. And we are part of the blame with the internet and Amazon Prime and all that. I'm not saying we are blameless, but what I'm saying is the great shame is the Britain we once dreamed, the Britain that we once had is the Britain we now dream of. And the reason it's 1990 is we had enough technology and enough comfort. So it's not the 60s or the 70s, but we hadn't been ruined by all of the problems we have now.
And we welcomed immigration because it was steady, sustainable, and it was about integration. So people that came to this country adopted the British way of life. And you know that from the NHS and all the other, aspects, other industries, other areas where people from come overseas and made a great contribution and who are listening to and watching this show. But it was tens of thousands per year, not a million.
Absolutely. And I've got written down here exactly those words: immigration, steady and stable. And we need immigration, and we need to welcome refugees, but not the people who clearly aren't. Young men of a fighting age, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, if not thousands, every week.
Comedies were funny on the telly as well, and you could be naughty on the radio.
Yeah, and we didn't live in this woke. It's because we didn't live in this.
You were at the Beeb, right? You're one of the biggest stars in local radio on the BBC, right? With an enormous following and a long career. And you felt the heat from the BBC over political correctness, didn't you?
I certainly did. Yeah.
For over nothing.
For absolutely over nothing at all.
And in 1990. There would have been no story there, no case to answer.
Absolutely no story, no story. And just think back to James Whale on the radio in 1990 and what James would have been talking about.
What he got away with, exactly, and God bless him. And of course, his soul and his spirit inhabits this very studio where he was the last place to broadcast. It's pretty wild, isn't it? So 1990, but what we've got to do is remember that, and Alex, go and reclaim it, basically.
You got it.
Isn't it? And we can do that. We can do that. Are you optimistic?
Of course I am. You've got to be glass half full.
Alex is in the house. How I've got the two Alexes.
Do you know what
Alex
a
Phillips,
collective of Alexes is called?
Go on then.
I don't know either.
An Alexi?
Beware.
Paradise.
Paradise.
There you go. Look, he's bringing in his own game today. Right, Reeves, how long's she got?
The thing is with this unscrupulous party who abjectly lie, who throw people in prison for social media, who think it's okay to abort children at full term, the list is endless, is they don't think she'll go anywhere.
These people just cling on. They know no shame, do they? That's the thing.
They know no shame. There is no sense of, in my mind, moral backbone to them. And so, when you look at the Angela Rayner thing, OK, so she stood down as Deputy Prime